Hello everyone, Zeno here. Here to bring in Season 2 Part 3 of What If TMNT Were Teleport in Avatar. Link down description of the fanfiction of this what if. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 5, More Worlds Than One. All 10 acolytes, along with Karai, Suki, Mai, and Tai Li, who sat off to the side, were sitting on top of a mountain as their instructor for the day was none other than Chikara. Strength of body, when combined with strength of mind and spirit, can move mountains. Chikara explained to the acolytes. Alone, however, the body shatters against rock, like a brittle twig. Yeah, but paper beats rock, and rock beats scissors. Mikey said as he was somehow thinking of a game of rock paper scissors. Wait, how can paper beat rock? Sokka asked. Well, paper covers rock, so, Mikey tried to explain, as they seemingly forgot about the lesson Chikara was attempting to teach them as Raph, Katara, and even Zuko all face-palmed in minor annoyance. But that doesn't mean paper beats rock. Sokka argued. Yeah, I mean a rock crushes paper, so why would you even use paper? Toph seemed to agree. Because that's how the game works. Mikey explained. Scissors cuts paper, rock beats scissors, so we need paper to cover rock to give it equal chance. That's not how our game works though. Sokka pointed out. I'll agree with Sokka on this one. Even Azula put her 2 cents in. Paper is essentially useless. It gets burnt by fire, crumbled in water, crushed by earth, and blown away by air. But our game doesn't use the elements. Mikey pointed out. Then what's the point? That sounds like a ridiculous game if you ask me. Azula argued. As they continued, Chikara's eyelids lowered impatiently as she simply chose to give them a demonstration. She walked toward a large boulder and easily lifted it into the air with one hand, much to the surprise of everyone present. Whoa, Tai Li looked in amazement. She's amazing. I don't think it's possible for any human to lift a boulder that high. Unless you're an earthbender, Suki pointed out. She is supposed to represent the ninjutsu element of strength. Karai pointed out. So, I'm not all that surprised. Plus, that story we heard of the tribunal shows she was trained by earthbenders. Mai also pointed out. Chikara then threw the boulder into the air, and when it came back down, she easily shattered it to pieces with a single punch, causing all the acolytes to look in further shock, while also covering themselves to avoid the debris from getting into their faces. Okay, now that's impressive. Dawn observed. Meh. Toph shrugged. I mean, yeah, compared to Sokka's level, that is impressive. Hey, Sokka protested. But any earthbender can shatter a rock any day of the week. Toph continued. Not all that special. Toph Beifong. Chikara called to her. Busted. Raph muttered. Stand. The green-eyed member of the ninja tribunal ordered the blind earthbender, who stood on her 2 feet as she approached her. You believe you can easily move mountains. I am an earthbender. It's sort of in the job description. Toph pointed up. Not to mention I'm the greatest earthbender in my world, I even invented metal bending. Your control over your art is impressive, however, it is simply an extension of your body, not your inner strength of mind and heart. Chikara pointed out. Strike me, without earthbending. Toph shrugged. Alright. She threw a punch at Chikara who easily caught it before squeezing on Toph's fist, causing her to wince in pain as she was brought down to her knees. The body alone shatters against rock. Chikara threw Toph away. Now, strike me with your earthbending. Toph rubbed her sore hand before a scowl formed on her face. She brought up 2 large earth pillars on Chikara's sides before bringing them onto her to try and crush her. But the pillars were shattered easily by Chikara. Toph then proceeded to shoot multiple rocks from the ground at Chikara, who easily blocked and swatted them away with one hand. Having had enough, Toph erected a rock armor around her body before shooting herself at Chikara like a missile, but Chikara not only halted Toph's movement with one hand, she even delivered a solid punch with her other hand right into Toph's abdomen, shattering her rock armor and knocking the wind right out of her before the young earthbender fell to her knees. Now do you see? Chikara explained harshly as Raph and Katara helped Toph on her feet. Those who rely too much on their weapon or natural ability find themselves complacent in the face of true power. Stand, acolytes. All 10 of them stood up, even the 4 female warriors who were observing them as well. Prepare. Chikara slammed her fists together and sent out a bright green energy wave all over the area as everyone looked in surprise to see all the rocks, pebbles, and boulders around the area move on their own. They were attracted to each other like metal to magnets before coming together in the form of massive 20-foot-tall humanoid entities made entirely out of rock. These stone Oni are powerful, and near impervious. Chikara explained as all 10 acolytes stood up to draw their weapons, save for Aang who carried no weapon. To defeat them, will take more than mere muscle. It is time to see if you can use what I have taught you. Focus on your inner strength. Who's ready to shatter some mountains? Raph said eagerly as he held Banrai in his hands. I'm more than ready. Toph almost growled, holding Yama in her hands, ready to let loose some frustration and show up Chikara a bit. That makes 3 of us. Even Azula was in agreement as he brandished her claws, Hino Arashi. I said inner strength. Chikara's hand began to glow, as all the weapons the acolytes wielded emanated with a green aura before vanishing completely. At the same time, the amulets around Aang, Katara, Zuko, Toph, and Azula also began to glow. No weapons are bending. What? Katara exclaimed as she, and the other benders present looked towards Chikara in shock. You took our bending away. Fight, warriors! Chikara ordered as the stone Oni charged, forcing the 10 acolytes to scatter and avoid getting crushed by the massive stone beasts. You gotta be kidding me. No weapons. There's always a catch. Raph growled. Come on, we have to help. Ty Lee was ready to jump in, but Karai held her back by the shoulder. Karai. We cannot. This is their lesson, we cannot interfere. Karai insisted. But, Ty Lee tried to protest. I'm pretty sure Chikara won't kill them, but I'm not comfortable with it either. Suki also said. And I'm sure they can pull it off. Mai said. We've seen them all do the impossible before, haven't we? She had a small smile on her face, which her friends all returned as they watched their friends attempt to dodge and avoid each of the strikes by the stone Oni. Raph and Toph found themselves together as 2 stone Oni approached them. How you doing, Toph? He asked her with concern. Oh, you know, completely blind as a bat, but other than that, okay. She replied with obvious sarcasm. Since her earthbending was nullified, her seismic sense was all but gone. Come on kid, focus. We got this, Raph said as he began to focus his own Kai. His amulet began to glow as his red aura and markings formed around his body. Toph began to follow his lead as her amulet also began to glow, with her green aura and green glowing markings forming around her body as well. Just like before, she could see the energy of the world around her, including the 2 approaching stone Oni. Toph smirked. It's shell-kicking time. One stone Oni attempted to stomp on her, but Toph was easily able to catch the foot with one hand before throwing a punch with her other to completely shatter the entity. Raph also caught the fist of the second rock giant that threw a punch at him before using his enhanced strength to spin and throw the stone Oni completely off the mountain. Mikey and Sokka meanwhile found themselves cornered by a stone Oni themselves. Uh-oh. Gotta any ideas, Sokka? Mikey asked hopefully as they dodged the stone Ona's fist. You go left and I go right. Sokka was drawing a blank as they tried to run to different sides of the monster. Okay. Science isn't real. Sokka tried to focus while also being more than a little nervous, and even a bit sarcastic. Magic is real, not science. So, come on non-science. He punched the leg of the stone Oni, but his Kai hadn't been channeled and he could only scream in comic pain as he held his sore knuckles. Mikey attempted the same thing as well as he pressed his fingers against his head. I'm focusing. He leapt to try and deliver his own punch, but much like Sokka, his Kai wasn't focused, and his knuckles might have cracked from the impact. Ow. But I was focusing. The stone Oni approached the downed Mikey as Sokka tried to help him out of the way. Katara saw her brother and friend in trouble and knew she had to help them. So, with a deep breath, Katara cleared her mind and began to focus her own Kai. Her amulet began to glow as the navy blue aura and markings formed around her body. Katara gave a yell as she leapt at the stone Oni and delivered an airborne roundhouse kick to its face area to shatter the behemoth completely, much to the surprise of Mikey and Sokka. You guys okay? She asked them urgently as the 2 could only respond with dropped jaws. At the same time, Azula backflipped to avoid a crushing punch from the stone Oni she was facing as she could only growl in frustration. I can't firebend, how am I supposed to fight this? Exclamation mark quote. She jumped over another punch as she leapt onto its arm and attempted to punch it with her bare hands, but she barely did any damage. This is impossible. It can't be done, she exclaimed right before the stone oni threw its arm out to shake Azula off and send her falling to the ground. She attempted to pick herself up as she looked up in shock and even fear to see the beast towering over her. It attempted to bring both its fists down on her to crush her as Azula only closed her eyes and awaited her fate. However, said fate did not come as she opened her eyes, only for them to widen in shock at the sight of Zuko standing protectively over her. His amulet was glowing along with his vibrant red aura and flame markings to appear all over his body, using his Kai-enhanced strength to keep the stone oni at bay before throwing his fist out to shatter the stone oni completely. Zuko walked over to his shocked sister and offered her his hand. Are you alright? Azula's expression of shock turned into one of spite as she simply pushed herself up, not accepting Zuko's gesture as he could only sigh in disappointment, though it wasn't unexpected. Meanwhile, Don jumped over a sweeping punch from the stone oni he was facing as he too began to channel his own Kai. His amulet was the first to glow, followed by the purple aura and markings around his body. He ducked underneath a swipe from the stone oni before leaping at its chest to smash right through it, creating a massive hole before the beast collapsed into rubble. Don almost couldn't believe it. Wow. I just thought it through and, wow, he exclaimed with an amazed smile on his face. However, it would appear that Leo himself was having a very difficult time against his own stone oni. His knuckles were wrapped up as he attempted to punch at the Ona's sides, but he didn't even seem to crack it. The stone oni kicked him back and was ready to stomp on the blue-clad turtle. Hey, over here, Aang called to the stone oni as it turned around to face him before giving chase. Aang had managed to lead the behemoth all the way to the edge of the mountain. Come on, hit me, Aang exclaimed as he appeared cornered. The stone oni threw a punch down onto the ground, which Aang avoided by quickly rolling underneath the stone ona's legs. The punch was enough to cause the edge to break apart, causing the stone oni to fall off the mountain completely. At first, Aang seemed proud of his accomplishment, however. Hold! Chikara's voice rang out as the remaining stone oni halted their fighting. The lesson ends. Everyone turned their attention to the Shisho as she voiced the results. Raphael, Toph Beifong, Zuko, Donatello, Katara, you have all done well. She turned to Azula, Leo, Sokka, and Mikey. The rest of you, your focus and discipline are poor. Avatar. Aang then turned to Chikara and walked toward her as she spoke with disappointment. You didn't even bother to attack. You relied solely on your wits, not your strength. Aang held his head down as he knew she was right. I know. You cannot rely on your pacifist beliefs anymore. You and your friends would do well to meditate on your utter failure here. Chikara then turned to walk away. Hey, don't we at least get a gold star for effort? Mikey called out. I stayed conscious. Seriously, that could have ended a lot worse for us, ya know. Sokka called out as well, but Chikara was long gone. Katara was quick to approach Aang as she put a supportive hand on his shoulder. Aang, don't listen to her. You did great. No, she was right. Aang spoke honestly. I didn't use my strength, only using what I learned from the air nomads to avoid a fight. But that's not going to cut it anymore, not against the threat we're facing. Aang, Katara hadn't expected Aang to speak like this. He wasn't feeling sorry for himself or anything like that, but rather, he was speaking seriously. I need to change the way I fight. Aang continued. I can't keep running away or avoiding it or just using self-defense anymore. You know you have my support, Aang, all our support, but, just don't change who you are. Katara said to him in a hopeful tone, to which Aang responded with an assuring smile. Don't worry, I won't. He gave her a quick kiss on the lips before joining everyone else. She was somewhat surprised by the gesture but smiled with a blush on her cheeks before joining them. While most of the group had smiled at their accomplishments, others were left in disappointment, particularly Leo as he had only himself to blame. Karai and the others looked to their friends with concern. Poor guys. Ty Lee voiced in sympathy. They're giving their all but it just might not be enough. Suki finished with concern. I wouldn't say that. Suki, and Ty Lee looked to the Ancient One in surprise as he appeared almost out of nowhere. Though Kurai didn't appear surprised as she bowed humbly. Ancient One. Seriously, someone should put a bell on you or something. Mai said in a somewhat irritable tone. Come young ones. The Ancient One gestured all four of them. Your friends will need your support. He walked away, before Kurai and the others followed him, silently agreeing with his assessment. Later that evening, Lap of the Gods. Leo, Sokka, and Mikey all sat off by the edge near the outer gate of the Tribunal Monastery. All three of them appeared to be in a state of brooding with disappointment clearly written all over their faces. Ahem. They all turned around in surprise to see the Ancient One, along with Kurai, Suki, and Ty Lee as the elderly master addressed them. Leonardo, Michelangelo, Sokka, do not let Chikara Shisho's beauty or lack of yelling deceive you, she is one of the harshest of the Shisho. Ancient One. Leo said as he, Mikey, and Sokka all bowed. I'm not sure the tribunal is happy with our progress. Yeah, Chikara wanted to drop kick us off that mountain. Mikey complained. I seriously think those guys are trying to give us a hard time. Sokka added. I mean, I know they're 1700-year-old masters of magic ninjutsu and all that, but I said I'd give up on science, so why can't I get a grip on magic yet? I don't think that's what they want for you, Sokka. Suki pointed out. The ninja tribunal would not waste their time on students who were not worthy. You are all doing well. Ancient One began. Sokka, you look for science and logic when trying to understand something, but you seem to have misunderstood the tribunal's message. You are not meant to abandon your worldviews entirely, but to open up your mind to new ways of seeing the world and using that to learn and improve. He's right. Suki added. Sokka, I know you're incredibly stubborn, but I also know you're capable of learning new things. I don't really agree with the tribunal's methods, but they clearly see something in you that is worth teaching. So, prove them right. She gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. That caused Sokka to smile slightly. Thanks, Suki. Michelangelo. The Ancient One turned to the orange-clad turtle. You have often used levity to ease your stress, enabling you to push through deadly situations. And while your optimism can work wonders, you must learn to take matters seriously. You have the potential to focus and harness your power, so do it. Yeah, come on Mikey. Ty Lee flipped behind him and wrapped her arms around his neck playfully. I know you can do it. You're amazing. Mikey smiled. Yeah, I guess I am. Finally, the Ancient One turned to the eldest ninja turtle. Leonardo, they are hardest on you because they see much potential. They expect you to rise to their challenge, as do I. And we all know you are capable of just that. Kurai spoke to Leo. You've proven time and time again that you are a mighty warrior, and I'm certain the tribunal sees that. So prove them right. That seemed to build up Leo's confidence, as well as Mikey's and Sokka's as they exchanged smiles before bowing. Thank you, Ancient One. Leo said. Seriously, you're a way better teacher than the tribunal. Sokka added. And who do you think trained me, Sokka? The Ancient One asked rhetorically before walking away, leaving the six of them alone to talk and relax in what few brief moments of respite they had. Meanwhile, deeper in the monastery, Azula stood in the middle of a ring of practice dummies before shooting out her right foot to incinerate a dummy with a plum of blue fire before leaping with a cartwheel kick of blue flames to obliterate another one, landing on her hands to deliver a spinning kick with both her feet and destroy the rest, leaving only one as she tried to spin her fingers in a familiar manner, generating lightning at the tips. However, right as she was about to shoot it, it exploded in her face and sent her flying back. Azula growled in frustration as this was the sixth time it happened to her today. She didn't understand why. She could always perform lightning flawlessly, so why couldn't she do it now? Why was she failing? Having a bad day. She turned to see a smiling Iroh approach her, resulting in her scowling as she looked away. The elderly man sat down to her level as he offered her a cup of tea. I'm not thirsty. Just try it. What do you have to lose? Iroh offered. Her scowl remained, but Azula took it regardless and had a small sip. Her eyes widened in brief surprise. Not bad. It certainly helps to calm the nerve, especially when one is so worked up. Iroh said. Azula scoffed. Bet this must make you so happy. Wasn't that long ago when Zuzu was in my shadow, now look at me. He's the lucky one with all the friends and the tribunal's favorite, when I'm now stuck at rock bottom. He even got that fancy sword from the Dragon King. Iroh's comforting expression hadn't wavered. You know, you actually sound quite a bit like Zuko. How he was when he too was angry. Azula, you are not failing. The Ninja Tribunal choose you as an acolyte because they saw potential in you. Quit acting like we're supposed to be family, uncle. Azula said in a scoff. Even if there is a blood relation, you and I were never close. You always stuck with Zuzu, and I was father's prized child. We were never family. Iroh's own face contorted one of grief. You may be right. Ozai and I were never really close, not even as children. He always had an explosive temper and set things on fire when he wouldn't get his way. I hate to say it in regard to my own brother, but there was something clearly wrong with Ozai when he was born. I used to admire him for his strength, but as I grew older, I saw how dangerous he was, so I tried to distance myself from him. In the end, all I ever saw was fire and ash, and a heart of ice in him. He likely saw something similar in you and tried to model you after him. So, you're happy that little alien bug killed him? Azula commented, looking away with a scowl. I didn't say that, Iroh said. I'm never happy at the thought of someone dying, even if they were cruel. But it's not just his death that's bothering you, isn't it? It's because you were deceived and used by Chirel, and almost played a part in the destruction of our world. Azula said nothing to confirm it but made no response in denying it either. Iroh sighed. Azula, you have made many mistakes in the past, this is true. You have been used and deceived, but that does not mean you can't find happiness. Your brother was nothing short of angry most of his life, and that anger took him to a very dark place. However, he was able to rise above the anger and find happiness, but he didn't do it alone. He had help, he had friends. If you were to reach out and do the same, I'm sure you'll find that happiness as well. He poured her another cup of tea and left it by her before walking away. Azula simply picked up the cup and looked at the reflection of herself in the tea, clearly having a great deal of thought flowing through her mind. As Iroh walked away, he passed by a corner before stopping. How much did you two hear? Enough, Zuko said as he and Mai walked out. You know, I was actually planning on saying something to her myself. I know, but you're not quite at my level of wisdom yet. Iroh joked as he playfully nudged Zuko in the arm, resulting in him smirking. What I'm still wondering is why you two are even making any effort with her. Mai began. Yeah, she was used by the Utram Shredder, and I'm sure not even she would want to end all life on Earth. But she still did a lot of crap long before that, especially to you Zuko. I know. Zuko acknowledged. Our relationship has always been messed up. But, she's still my sister. Look at how I was, but you two and everyone else were still able to help me and make me a better person. Is it really so wrong that I want the same for her? There is nothing wrong at all with that, Iroh said with a proud smile. The fact that you want to help her despite all your past grievances shows how far you've come, Zuko. And Mai, I understand why you feel so weary, and I'm not going to tell you what to do, but perhaps a little encouragement wouldn't hurt. You'd be surprised at how much people can change. Mai sighed. Fine, I guess I'll give it a try. But if she shoots anyone with lightning, I might just cut her fingers off. Iroh nodded as he patted her on the shoulder before walking away. Zuko and Mai paid one final glance towards Azula as they themselves shared a glance before walking away as well. Azula sighed as she helped herself to her tea. You could at least try to get along with everyone. The former fire princess looked into her cup to see a reflection of her mother, Ursa, addressing her. What do you want? I just want to know how my daughter is doing. The hallucination of Ursa commented. Oh, just fine. Azula began to speak in a clear sarcastic tone. I only recently found out that I'm supposed to fight what is more or less the ultimate evil with people I've tried to kill repeatedly. You know, just a typical Monday. The first Shredder left quite an impact on you, Ursa said. And now you face something worse and it's leaving you terrified. I'm not afraid. Azula looked away defiantly. You used to be such a good liar, Ursa observed with sympathy. But there's no need to be so defensive. You have people who are willing to help you, if you let them. Even Zuko. Did you ask him to do that? She glared at the reflection of her mother. No, that was of his own accord. Azula, you don't have to model yourself after your father anymore. He's gone, you have nothing to prove to anyone. Ursa tried to reason with her. Azula looked away with a conflicted expression. Please, just leave me alone. She looked to see the image of her mother had vanished, causing Azula to sigh as she rubbed her hand down her face. At the same time, Aang walked into the central temple within the lap of the gods, the chamber where all 4 members of the ninja tribunal sat on their thrones. Aang glanced at the empty throne as he now knew who that was originally for. Maybe they kept it as a constant reminder, maybe not. But he had a few things he had to get off his chest first as he approached the ninja tribunal. You were not summoned, Avatar. Judo said. I know about the Tengu Shredder. Aang spoke. I know what happened 1700 years ago between all of you, Oroku Sake, and my predecessor Yukyu. Your point? Chikara asked. Why didn't you just ask us? Aang asked. You and Yukyu made a vow that she or any other future avatar would come to help you if the demon Shredder ever threatened to return. So, you could have simply asked us for help, and we would have come. Instead you attacked and abducted all of us. Why? The Mokusei no Bushi were sent to test you. Khan explained. We needed to access the skills you and all your friends currently had to see what needed improvement. So, you've been watching us. Aang observed. All of us, in both worlds. For all these years. Is there something you would like to say, Avatar? Chikara questioned. Did you guys know what Sozin was going to do to the air temples? Aang questioned. Did you know about the genocide of the air nomads? He exclaimed. And if you did, why didn't you do anything to stop it? That insignificant speck Sozin and his family line are nothing compared to the threat of the Shredder. Judo stated. If we attempted to stop him, we run the risk that the Shredder could be revived. That cannot be allowed. I know how dangerous the demon Shredder is, I realize that. Aang acknowledged. But at least 1 or 2 of you could have helped and the rest could have stayed here and guard the artifacts. Even if we did deal with Sozin, another tyrant would have taken his place. Khan explained. We have seen this time and time again in both our and your worlds. The pool in front of them began to shift and change as Aang saw magical projections of various wars and conflicts in both worlds. Including World War I and II, as well as images of various tyrants such as Qin the Conqueror, Adolf Hitler, and Stalin. Sozin was not an outlier. Multiple despots, dictators, and others one could consider villainous, have appeared throughout the ages. Wars reigned across the lands in both worlds. We cannot interfere in any of these conflicts without running the risk of the threat of the Shredder rising again. Aang's expression softened as he looked at all these images and projections of conflict and destruction. As the Avatar, you are tasked to maintain peace in your world. Chikara also said. However, your predecessors must have told you that despite your best attempts, there will always be those who will seek to disrupt this peace for their own ends. I realize that, but, Aang tried to speak. All is as it must be. Judo stated. Aang sighed as he really didn't have a way to respond to that. Is there anything else you wish to say? Actually yes, one last thing. Aang's expression became hardened as he spoke seriously to the tribunal. As I said before, my friends and I know the crisis we're in and we're all willing to cooperate with you. But, let me make one thing perfectly clear, my friends are not expendable. I don't care if you were friends with my predecessor, I won't let you sacrifice my friends and family to serve your own ends, even if it's for the greater good. If you try it, you will answer to me. Aang turned around to leave the monastery with that final remark, leaving the tribunal alone. Though Judo and Chikara had stone-cold expressions, Khan's was that of mild concern, while the ever-silent Hisami contorted a small hint of regret. There was indeed a small part of him that did not enjoy endangering young lives, regardless of the threat they all faced. Master Splinter ran through the dark and twisted forest as fast as he could. Terror filled his face as he came out into the clearing and saw something that made his heart stop completely. No, not again. The broken, bloodied, and lifeless bodies of Leo, Aang, Raph, Katara, Mikey, Zuko, Dawn, Toph, Sokka, and Azula all laid on the ground in front of him. Not again. Splinter screamed as he fell to his knees in despair. The demonic neighing of a monstrous horse was heard as Splinter looked toward the source of the call, only to see the Tengu Shredder riding his demon horse riding straight at him with his trident, his vile and sinister laugh echoing through the air as he rode out to impale Splinter. No, no. Splinter woke up with a startle, taking multiple breaths to steady himself as he looked around. He was still in the same room in the monastery, His sons, as well as the other young heroes, were still sleeping relatively peacefully on the mats all around the room, causing Master Splinter to look in relief, but there was also deep concern. Night after night, the same vision. Master Splinter muttered to himself as he rubbed his hand down his face. Master Yoshi, please, tell me how to protect my sons from this coming darkness. The next morning, the acolytes kicked off the day with their next lesson from Hisumi Shisho. Today's task was simple: try to catch Hisumi. The ninjutsu master of stealth would run down a long path throughout the mountains with the 10 acolytes running after him to catch up with him. However, just because it was simple, didn't mean it was easy. It was already half an hour, and Hisumi showed no signs of stopping as he continued to run. Not far behind him appeared to be Leo and Aang, followed by Zuko, Mikey, Katara, and Azula. Sokka wasn't far behind the pack as well, with Toph, Raph, and Don being a bit further in the back. Though Hisumi hadn't nullified the group's bending like Chikara had yesterday, the benders wouldn't be using their abilities, if only so they could better learn to focus their Kai. This was something everyone was taking seriously, even Mikey and Azula. Chasing Hisumi isn't exactly boosting my morale. Leo commented. I'm getting tired of failing. That makes 2 of us. Aang added. You could easily use your avatar state to catch up with him if you wanted. Azula pointed out. I can't become too dependent on it. Aang explained. I have to learn to get stronger without taking any shortcuts. Azula looked away slightly. At least you have something to rely on. Your attitude isn't helping, Zuko told her. She glared at her brother. I bet you're enjoying this, aren't you? For once, you're the star pupil and I'm the failure. There's a benefit to failure, Azula. Zuko replied. You get to learn from your mistakes. He's right, Leo added. So maybe instead of feeling sorry for yourself, use what you've learned and try to make yourself better. Azula said nothing, but continued running with the rest of the group as they tried to catch up with Hisumi. Aang ran back slightly to be at the same pace as Katara, Mikey, and Sokka. How are you guys holding up? Peachy. Sokka said sarcastically. I just love running non-stop. At the same time, Raph, Don, and Toph hung more so in the back as they were engaging in some small talk. You're gonna put missiles in it. Cool. Toph stated with a smirk. Oh, I know. Don was already excited at the very thought of his newest invention. It'll have armor plating, a communications center, and be fully remote accessible. I didn't understand half of that, but if it blows up bad guys, I'll get behind it. Toph replied. Yeah, Donnie likes to ramble when it comes to his tech. Raph commented with a teasing smirk as Don playfully rolled his eyes. Say what you will, but the turtle taxi is gonna rock it. Don stated. As they continued to run, Toph could feel Hisumi getting farther and farther away from them with each passing second. We're not gonna catch Hisumi, are we? The former blind bandit assumed. Probably not. Don agreed. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Even Raph added. Speed ain't my game. It's not mine either. Toph said. However, despite that, Mikey refused to give up as he pressed onward, passing Leo, Zuko, Azula, and even Aang. Move it or lose it, slowpokes. He exclaimed as he passed them, with Katara and Sokka not far behind him either, prompting Leo, Aang, Azula, and Zuko to pick up the pace. How does he do it? Sokka said as he was already out of breath. Come on Sokka, we can't give up. We can do this, Katara told her brother. Maybe you can, but I can't. Sokka exclaimed. Look, I'm not like you guys, okay? I failed nearly every lesson the tribunal taught us. I'm no ninja, I'm no bender, I'm just a nobody. Sokka, remember what the Ancient One told us yesterday. Mikey reminded. We have to be open-minded. We have to remember what Hisumi said about stealth and movement. Well, what he mimed about them anyway. Open your mind Sokka. You can and you will do this. Katara told him. I believe in you. We all do. Hearing that support and remembering the words Suki and the Ancient One told him yesterday was enough to push Sokka to keep going. He took a deep breath as he began to concentrate. Okay, opening my mind. Sokka muttered. See it happen, picture myself there, and Chikara said, if I focus my Kai, Sokka's amulet began to glow as the silver aura and bright silver markings appeared around his body. And it wasn't just Sokka. Mikey and Katara followed his lead as they too began to concentrate. Soon, their own amulets began to glow brightly as their respective orange and navy blue aura and markings appeared on their bodies as well. In less than a second, all three of them shot at insane speeds, leaving behind a literal dust cloud as they ran. Hisami had already made a considerable distance from the acolytes, running at a speed that was equivalent to a car on the highway. However, as he glanced to his side, he found that Mikey, Sokka, and Katara had not only caught up to him, but matched their pace to his. "Hey, nice day for a run, huh?" Sokka said with a wave and a friendly smile, while Mikey gave an amused shrug. Hisami narrowed his eyes briefly before something of a playful smirk formed on his face. He then picked up his speed even further, almost doubling it as he seemingly left the three young acolytes in the dust. "Oh, so we're playing it like that, huh?" Mikey wasn't the least bit deterred as he, Katara, and Sokka exchanged eager grins as they too increased their speed, leaving a dust trail behind them that would even make NASCAR racers jealous. In no time, all three of them had managed to catch up to Hisami. "Come on, is that all you got?" Katara said almost challengingly as she, Mikey, and Sokka were more than ready to meet the next challenge. However, Hisami had none to give as he smiled proudly before bowing his head, indicating they had passed with flying colors, much to their joy as they smiled and continued to run alongside him. Unfortunately, not everyone was so lucky as the remaining 7 acolytes could see, even from such a far distance, that the lesson was over, and only Mikey, Katara, and Sokka had passed. "Way to go guys," Aang called to them, even though they likely couldn't hear them. Even Leo smiled as he too was proud of them. Azula however sighed, more so out of disappointment toward herself. "We're never going to hear the end of this, are we?" "Probably not," Zuko replied with a humorous yet sympathetic smile. Later that afternoon, the 10 acolytes gathered in the courtyard of the Lap of the Gods, as they all sat cross-legged on the ground in a circle surrounding their current instructor, Kan Shisho. Karai, Suki, Ty Lee, and Mai were present as well, sitting on the stairs along the side as they listened to Kan speak. "While you walk on this earth, your spirit walks in another world. What you see with your eyes is only one plane of existence." Kan's body then began to hover in the air. "What you feel with your heart and Kai, that is the world of the spirit." "You mean the spirit world?" Sokka asked. "Not quite," Kan explained. "The realm you refer to as the spirit world is a separate dimension that exists in the reality of the world of the 4 nations, where different entities known as spirits reside. However, the world I speak of, is one that is not accessible by any earthly means. It is a realm in which your own spirit and soul walk and live, as you walk and live in this world." "Okay, I guess that makes sense." Toph didn't quite seem to understand. "To truly combat the coming evil, you must be able to manifest your spirit as an avatar," Kan said. "Like Aang?" Ty Lee asked as she and her friends found themselves engaged, despite not being acolytes themselves. "Not exactly," Karai explained. "The definition of an avatar is a physical manifestation of a deity, or a released soul in bodily form on the earthly plane. Can I assume this is what you are speaking of, Kan Shisho?" "That is correct," Kan confirmed. "The spirit avatar taps into a warrior's deepest soul, manifesting a true totem of each warrior's inner being. Each members of the ninja tribunal manifest a dragon, the ancient symbol for wisdom and strength. The dragon is a very rare avatar." "The dragon," Leo said almost in awe. "Excuse me, Kan Shisho." Aang raised his hand. Despite Aang's disagreement with the tribunal the previous night, he was still open to learning what they had to teach him. "How would that relate to me considering I'm an avatar?" "You are a special case, Avatar Aang," Kan explained. As Karai explained, the avatar is a physical manifestation of a spiritual or divine being. "Tell me, do you know how it is possible that you are the only individual capable of mastering all 4 elements, or how you are able to reincarnate, why you are chosen to represent the bridge between the human and spirit realms of your world?" Aang looked in surprise. "No, I guess I never really gave it much thought. It is because you are the physical embodiment of light and peace in your world," Kan explained as he stood on his feet. "When the tribunal went to your world to better prepare ourselves for the evil we faced, ourselves and Yukyu learned of the origins of the Avatar. Long ago, before the 4 nations themselves even existed, there were 2 spirits that were considered the most powerful entities of your world. There was Rava, the spirit of light and peace, a physical embodiment of all that was good. And her twin, Vatu, the spirit of darkness and chaos. Much like the Shredder Tengu of ancient times, Vatu was a physical manifestation of all that was evil in your world. In order to combat her twin, Rava had merged with a human to enable him to not only master the four elements but achieve spiritual abilities that no other human could muster. And thus, the Avatar was born. Everyone looked towards Aang in awe and wonder, even Azula was quite stunned. Aang himself looked to his own hands and himself, quite amazed at what he had just learned. So, what happens if I try to manifest an avatar like what you and the rest of the tribunal do when you turn into dragons? Nothing. Khan replied, much to Aang's surprise. You already reach that higher plane of existence when you tap into the avatar state, allowing the full power of predecessors and Rava to physically manifest. However, in the avatar state, you can take your power even further. He walked up to Aang and held his amulet. By focusing your Kai, your own physical abilities will be enhanced, speed and strength, but also spiritual. You've felt it before, haven't you? During your final confirmation with the Utram Shredder, you unlocked a power that only a select few avatars have ever used in the past. Energy bending. Aang's eyes widened in realization, as he remembered his final battle against Shirel. He had used energy bending to block the power of the Sword of Tengu. That was energy bending. Yes, and you can use it along with what you have learned to manifest your power to its fullest potential. Meditate and show us, Khan instructed. The young avatar sat down and began to meditate. Everyone paid close attention as they saw Aang's amulet began to glow, as did his arrow tattoos with their typical white glow, as if he were entering the avatar state. The amulet he wore helped him to find the power Khan spoke of that was deep inside him, enabling him to bring it out to the surface. Soon, Aang's entire body began to glow a bright blue color. Almost as if his skin was turning blue with a bright aura around his body, save for his glowing white arrow tattoos. Aang's body began to hover in the air as he shined a bright light, almost like a miniature sun, with the markings of Rava appearing on his chest. Everyone looked to Aang with awe and amazement. All his friends were nothing short of impressed, even Azula had been rendered speechless. This is the power of the Avatar at its fullest. To think the Fire Nation tried to stand a chance against that. Incredible, he is a true force of nature. Aang soon left this higher state of being as the bright blue and white glow vanished and he lowered himself to the ground. He stood up as he addressed Khan directly. How was that? Khan smiled with a nod. Well done, Avatar Aang. He then turned to address the remainder of the acolytes. Let us now see what lies hidden in your hearts, young warriors. Meditate on your inner spirit, make it manifest. Raph groaned. Ah, more meditation. Wonderful. Toph tried to put herself in a meditative position, only to feel a cramp on her side. Ow. Who invented this pose? I think I'd meditate better lying down. Khan suddenly appeared behind her and gave a light punch to the back of her head. Ow. Quiet your mind, to unleash your spirit. Khan instructed. Aang walked toward Karai, Mai, Ty Lee, and Suki and sat down near them as the other 9 acolytes began to meditate. What do you guys think is going to happen? Ty Lee asked almost excitedly. Your guess is as good as mine. Mai replied. So, do these spirit avatars always manifest as animals? Suki asked. Certain myths and folklore depict deities or spiritual entities taking forms resembling certain animals. Karai explained. And there is a meaning and symbolism behind each animal as well. Well, I'm a little excited to see what everyone else has to show us. Aang said. I swear if there are any turtle avatars, I'm gonna laugh my butt off. Mai said with a smirk as Ty Lee and even Suki giggled. Katara was the first to get something as she meditated. Her amulet began to glow as her aura and markings formed once more. Observe Katara. Her avatar manifests. Khan began as 2 large surges of navy blue energy twirled upwards into the air as a transparent image of a large hawk appeared in the air. This hawk had navy blue feathers with white tips and the wings and tail feathers. There was even a trail of water falling behind the hawk as it flapped its wings. The hawk represents hope and fearlessness. Toph was next as her amulet began to glow. A bright green aura formed around her as 2 swilling surges of green energy shot slowly upward, before a transparent image of a bear formed. This bear had dark green fur along the arms, with pale brown fur at the chest, and black fur at the top of its head. Its dull eyes indicated it was blind. Behold Toph's avatar, the bear represents strength. Khan explained. Up next was Sokka, already having opened his mind as a silver aura formed around his body as well. Two swirling surges of silver energy also shot into the air as a transparent image of a large wolf had appeared. This wolf had primarily silver fur, with dark blue and black highlights along its side and face. Well done, Sokka. The wolf represents loyalty, ferocity, and speed. Khan revealed. Zuko's body began to glow a fiery red as he made his spirit manifest. Twirling surges red energy formed above his body before swirled together, where the transparent image of a lion had appeared. This lion had red fur with a golden mane that appeared to be made entirely out of golden fire. This lion also had a scar identical to Zuko's over the left side of its face. And Zuko manifests the lion, symbol of honor and courage. Well, I'm feeling like a dud. Mikey commented. Don and Raph looked at their friends' spiritual avatars in amazement as their descriptions matched that of each of their friends to a T. Wow, that is amazing, Aang exclaimed, happy to see his friends making this kind of progress. I'll say. Suki agreed. Yes, most impressive. Karai nodded as even Mai smiled. However, Ty Lee looked with a concerning expression towards Azula, who was only frustrated as she attempted to meditate but couldn't make anything manifest. Ty Lee walked up to her and placed a hand on her shoulder, getting her attention. Maybe try to relax, Ty Lee suggested. Just breath, don't think about anyone else. Focus on you. Not Zuko, not your dad, no one but you, she said before walking away. Azula was mildly surprised but regardless chose to take Ty Lee's advice as she had nothing left to lose. So, with a deep breath, Azula began to focus on her own inner self, not giving another thought to anyone else, be they friend, foe, or even family. Soon, an azure blue color formed around her body as her amulet began to glow. Her aura's energy twirled upward similar to everyone else as the transparent image of an animal appeared. It was in the form of a bird, with long feathers and a long neck. Its wings and chest appeared to be a bright blue color, leaving a trail of blue flame beneath the wings, with a bright orange-red color at the head. Interesting. Khan voiced. The phoenix. The what? Aang questioned as he stood up. Much like the dragon, the phoenix is a very rare avatar. Khan explained. It carries dual representations. On one end, it represents destruction and death. That's not much of a surprise. Mai commented as even Raph glared slightly. However, it is not the destruction of others, but rather destruction of oneself. Khan continued, as everyone listened in surprise. And on the other end, it represents rebirth. Self-destruction and rebirth, Mikey asked. Translation please. In certain myths, whenever the phoenix dies, it is literally reborn from its own ashes into something stronger and more majestic. Don explained. At least, according to myth. Aang and Karai, and even Zuko, looked towards Azula with this particular revelation. With concentration and training, you will soon be able to meld your worldly form with your spirit totem. Khan explained to everyone as Leo attempted to concentrate and focus on his own Kai. You will actually become your. Suddenly, Khan and everyone else looked towards Leo in surprise as his body began to emanate a powerful white aura that shined with a glow that previously rivaled Aang's. As Leo concentrated and his amulet glowed even brighter, two swirling surges of white energy shot up from around him, shattering the transparent images of the 5 spirit avatars before Leo's own manifested itself. It was a dragon. It had primarily green skin, with a bright blue turtle shell on its back, along with blue armored scales along its chest, tail, head, and legs. It even carried magnificent white wings as it roared to the heavens. Everyone was absolutely amazed, even Khan didn't see this coming. The dragon, inconceivable for one so young. Khan exclaimed in surprise before looking towards the eldest ninja turtle. It seems, we were right about you, he said as Leo's brothers and friends got up to surround and congratulate him with high fives and pat backs and cheers. Even Aang, Karai, Ty Lee, Mai, and Suki had joined in as well. Even Khan smiled. There is more to you and your brothers than it first seems apparent to the eye. Azula looked up towards the dragon one last time before it vanished. She was nothing short of amazed. All her life, she actually wanted to see a dragon for herself, and now that she had, it was as if something pure and childlike that had been buried deep inside her had suddenly came to life. She couldn't stop herself from smiling as she looked toward Leo, more than a little impressed. Right as the transparent image of the dragon vanished, Chikara and Hisami walked onto the scene with important news. Khan, ready the acolytes. The second artifact has been found. Head me well, acolytes. Khan told the 10 acolytes, along with their friends as they, Hisami, and Chikara boarded the ship for departure. It is of the utmost importance that you secure the second artifact. If it is returned safely here to the lap of the gods, the Shredder's minions will be unable to resurrect their master. But be warned, I sense that an ever-shifting evil awaits you. The flying ship departed with all its passengers, with Appa flying beside it. Great, no pressure or nothing. Raph commented sarcastically. Things are never easy for us, are they? Sokka also commented. Would it really be fun if it weren't easy? Toph asked eagerly. Night had fallen as the group of heroes reached their destination. Chikara and Hisami led the large group consisting of Aang, Leo, Zuko, Raph, Katara, Dawn, Toph, Mikey, Sokka, Karai, Azula, Suki, Mai, and Ty Lee through a swampy area, with Appa trailing behind them as well. Momo even flew in the air above the group. Aang, Zuko, and Azula provided some extra lighting with flames in their palms. The 2 tribunal members had led the group toward a large stone doorway that led underneath a massive tree and likely led underground. Ah, there. The passageway to the second artifact. We must secure it at any cost. However, Appa stopped once he saw the tunnel and groaned in annoyance as he backed away. Appa's not going to be able to come with us down there. Aang said as he patted his bison's head to calm him down. He hates going underground. It's probably too small for him to fit anyway. Leo commented on seeing the doorway. We could just earthbend it to make it bigger. Toph pointed out. Leave the beast, Avatar. Chikara told him. There is too much at stake. Alright. Aang nodded as he also patted Momo's head as the lemur flew down and perched himself on Aang's shoulder. Momo, stay out here and keep Appa company. Momo chirped affirmatory as he flew up and curled himself on Appa's head. Beware warriors. Chikara addressed all the young fighters as she and Hisami stood outside the entranceway. This is the Warren of the Nezumi. What does Nezumi mean? Katara asked. It is Japanese for rat. Karai translated. Wait, you're saying we have to fight rats? Dawn questioned. Ty Lee giggled slightly. Dude, your sensei is a Nezumi. I'm guessing that these aren't your typical run-of-the-mill rats, right? Zuko asked the tribunal members. Correct. Chikara confirmed. The Nezumi is a shape-changing Tengu with a taste for living flesh. So, remember your training. She and Hisami turned around to enter the tunnel. So, we gotta fight giant cannibalistic rat demons, huh? Sokka gulped as he, Suki, Mikey, Ty Lee, and even Aang looked more than a little nervous. Yep, just our luck. Raph moaned. Come on everyone, let's go. Aang said as the group entered the tunnel right behind the tribunal members, leaving Appa and Momo behind. The group entered a large cavern with water all over the ground, though it was only ankle deep so there was no need to worry about drowning or anything. Everyone kept their guard up as they followed Hisami and Chikara into the main cavern. What instantly got everyone's attention was an intimidating altar with demonic dragon-like statues on each side and a black and red cask at the very top. Can I assume that is the second artifact? Azula asked. What gave it away? Mikey asked sarcastically. The freaky altar or the orange-clad turtle gulped fearfully. Mountain of skulls. Nearly everyone in the group, even Azula, looked more than a little freaked out at the multiple piles of humanoid skulls all around the cavern. However, Toph stopped dead in her tracks as she not only felt something coming their way, but even heard multiple squeaking noises coming from the skull piles. Guys, we got company. Toph warned. Right as she said that, countless rats emerged from the holes in all the skull piles and began to swarm down the piles and into the water in an attempt to surround the heroes. Chikara and Hisami were immediately on guard. This is a trap, Chikara stated. Somehow I'm not surprised. Mai's eyelids lowered. However, nearly all the rats quickly transformed. Once they were all small and harmless, now they were giant, almost the size of a full-grown man, ripped with muscle, along with razor-sharp claws and fangs with deep roars and growls. As they leapt at the group, Chikara as on the attack first, spinning her body over her club and delivering a split kick to shatter the skulls of two pouncing Nezumi demons before hauling her club over to smash it into the ground and send 3 more Nezumi flying all the way across the cavern, shattering the rocks they hit. Hisumi also drew his Tessin as he threw them into the air to slice and dice all the Nezumi that had climbed the ceiling and were ready to pounce down on them. Nearly everyone looked in surprise at how skilled they were. "We should bring the tribunal with us more often," Don commented. "Totally. These guys are awesome," Tai Li exclaimed with amazement. However, the Nezumi were far from finished as one transformed near the altar. He was the biggest of them all with a hardened spine on his back, a scar over his left eye, and spikes from his shoulders. He was clearly the leader. "Rise again, my brothers. Engulf the tribunal in our darkness." Upon his command, all the fallen Nezumi corpses began to glow briefly as dark specters emerged. They quickly flew down to surround both Hisumi and Chikara and literally engulf them. "Acolytes, attack!" Leo ordered as everyone, acolyte or otherwise, drew their weapons and leapt into the fray. Aang leapt into the air with airbending before shooting down multiple fire fists to roast 3 Nezumi on the ground before landing, in which he shot out multiple water tentacles to ensnare 5 more Nezumi about to pounce on them and slam them all into each other. Leo ran by his side with both his katanas to cut down 2 Nezumi that were approaching him before they came back to back as 6 Nezumi total surrounded them, but Aang was able to propel both of them into the air with an earth pillar right as the Nezumi pounced only to hit the pillar face first. Zuko ducked underneath a slice from a Nezumi before slicing at its chest with Gunshin while also jumping to deliver a flaming kick to blast one Nezumi back before he began to focus his Kai. His red aura and markings began to form just as Gunshin's blade lit with white fire. Gunshin. Zuko shot the sword forward to blast a column of white flame at 4 Nezumi to completely incinerate them, even their dark specters had been destroyed. Don also began to focus as a purple aura and his markings appeared. Byako, go! Don had impaled 1 Nezumi with the blade on his weapon before leaping into the air and spinning rapidly like a top as 4 Nezumi leapt at him, but he was able to slice and knock them all back before landing on his feet. "I'm a mean, green, beatdown machine." Tai Li flipped and ducked underneath the claw strike of 1 Nezumi before leaping over it to strike at its arms and other vital points, paralyzing it and causing it to fall onto the ground. 2 more attempted to pounce and bite at her, but she was quick and nimble enough to avoid their bites as she Kai blocked them as well. A 4th was about to pounce at her from behind, but a knife had struck its head to kill it as Mai ran and slid across the water, throwing out several knives from her sleeves to hit the throats of 2 more approaching Nezumi, seemingly killing them. "You doing okay?" Tai Li asked her friend. "I'm just glad that we can actually hit these demons," Mai replied. However, both their looks became that of terror as the dark specters of the Nezumi emerged from their corpses, even those that weren't killed but paralyzed. I don't think my Kai blocking is going to work for that," Tai Li said with a pale face. Meanwhile, Raph had appeared cornered by several growling Nezumi. But he was far from helpless as his red aura and markings formed around his body. "It's shell-kicking time, Banrai." His body spun like a bladed frisbee as he rolled across the ground to slice and dice at least 7 Nezumi total before coming to a stop. Suki and Karai found themselves back to back as the former wielded a fan and shield, while the later held a katana in one hand and a chain in the other. 10 Nezumi appeared to surround the pair as Karai threw her chain to ensnare the neck of one, which she pulled in to impale on her sword before kicking its corpse onto the second one that pounced at her. Suki used her shield to block the claw strikes of the third before slicing at its throat with her fan, before throwing her shield away like a frisbee to hit the heads of 2 Nezumi, while also drawing her sword to cut down another as Karai used her sword to slice at the remainder of the Nezumi that pounced at them. However, just like with the others, dark specters emerged from the fallen bodies of the Nezumi and leapt in to try and engulf them both, despite Karai and Suki's resistance. Suki, Karai, Sokka ran to help them as he channeled his Kai. His silver aura and markings appeared as he wielded his mystic weapon. Hikari, both blades glowed a bright silver light as he zoomed in with insane super speed to slice at the dark specters surrounding his lover and his friend. The blades of light sliced through the shadows like a hot knife through butter before they disintegrated, allowing Karai and Suki to regain their breath as they fell to their knees. "Thanks, Sokka." Suki smiled as he helped her and Karai on their feet. "No problem." Boyfriend duty. Sokka smirked playfully. Perhaps we could save the romance for later. Karai pointed out as they were still far from finished. Toph appeared surrounded by at least 12 Nezumi total, but she wasn't the least bit scared. Come on, you guys hungry? Well, eat this. Her green aura and markings formed around her body. Yama. Her body spun like a green tornado as she shot out multiple rocks at a rate equivalent to that of a Gatling gun to completely pulverize and crush the bones of every Nezumi that attempted to leap at her. At the same time, Katara and Mikey came together as the former used her waterbending to shoot out multiple water tentacles with icy tips to impale 3 pouncing Nezumi as Mikey leapt over her to deliver a kick to a fourth. As they appeared surrounded by at least 10 of them, they both came back to back as their respective blue and orange auras and markings formed. Inazuma attack. Mikey exclaimed as he leapt into the air to spin his weapon and send out multiple orange electric bolts at 5 of the Nezumi as Katara mimicked his actions. Go Arashi. Katara readied 5 water arrows with her bow, which she launched as they curved around like tracking missiles to impale the remaining 5 Nezumi right as Mikey landed and they shared a high five. Who's the best turtle bender team? Mikey exclaimed with a wide smile. We are. Katara exclaimed just as enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Azula ran towards 6 charging Nezumi as her azure blue aura and markings formed. Her right bladed gauntlet surged with blue flame as her left one surged with lightning. Hino Arashi. She leapt like a horizontal corkscrew, shooting past all 6 Nezumi with blazing speed and surging electricity. As she shot past them, all 6 of them were frozen solid before shattering completely as she made a dramatic finishing stance. However, before the former Fire Princess could celebrate, a dark specter pounced onto Azula and attempted to drown her. If not in the water she stood over, then in its own darkness. Azula. Aang called as he and Leo leapt into action. Aang was able to knock the specter away with a fire fist as he and Leo surrounded the downed Azula. The Nezumi leader approached the trio as Azula recovered. Now you become food. The master will reward me. I don't think so, Tengu. Leo glared as he and the Avatar exchanged glances. You with me, Aang? Yes. Aang's amulet began to glow as he simultaneously entered the Avatar state just as Leo's own blue aura and markings formed. Leo's aura surged a bright white light as he manifested the transparent image of his dragon avatar. At the same time, Aang hovered in the air as his whole body began to glow a bright blue aura, manifesting an aura of energy bending around him, shooting out beams of light that was further amplified by the light shined by Leo's dragon avatar. The intense light was too much for the Nezumi leader as he screamed in agony. His skin peeled off to reveal the dark specter underneath which was blown and melted away by the same light. This happened all over the cavern as every single Nezumi that was attacking their friends, or their dark specters, had been melted and blown away by the combined light from Aang's energy bending as well as Leo's dragon. This light had also freed Hisumi and Chikara from their predicament, obliterating the Nezumi dark specters surrounding them as they looked in minor surprise, while all of their friends were nothing short of amazed. Even Azula was completely dumbfounded. Once they were certain all the Nezumi had been wiped out, Aang and Leo stopped their attack as they turned back to normal, with Aang descending to the ground via airbending. He smiled towards Leo who smiled as well as they exchanged a friendly handclasp. Leo then turned to offer the still shocked Azula a hand up, with Aang smiling by his side. Azula hesitated for a minute but accepted the gesture as she held onto Leo's hand and he helped her to her feet. Leonardo, Avatar. Please, call me Aang. He insisted in a friendly manner. Aang. Azula stuttered for a minute. I'm not good at saying, thank you. It's one of my few flaws. Ah, so you admit you have flaws, huh? Leo said with a smirk before a sincere smile formed on his face. But, you're welcome. There was a blush of embarrassment on Azula's cheeks as she attempted to look away. Hey, call me crazy, but I think I just saw a blush on your cheeks. Zuko walked up with a smirk, causing Azula to blush harder as she turned away. However, Hisumi had already leapt up to the altar and quickly threw away the top of the cask to reveal the artifact that was hidden inside, the gauntlet of the Shredder, which levitated into the air with an ominous aura, right into Hisumi's hands. Everyone else approached the altar as they saw the object they were seeking. As that, Katara muttered as a chill went down her spine upon seeing the bladed gauntlet. The Shredder's gauntlet, the second artifact. Dawn stated. Hey, you guys know what this means. Sokka began in an excited tone. We got the helmet away from the fish demons, we just got back the gauntlet from the rat demons, and the third artifact is locked up at the monastery, we won. So, that's it then. We won. Ty Lee exclaimed in a hopeful tone with a large smile. We stopped the Shredder's resurrection. Let's not celebrate just yet. Karai told them. We need to secure the artifacts first. Yeah, I'll feel a hole better when we bury those things in a hole so deep not even I will be able to get to it. Toph agreed. That's really deep, Raph pointed out. Once she saw Hisame had the gauntlet in hand, Chikara turned to face the acolytes, specifically Leo and Aang up front. You have done well, she acknowledged as she bowed her head, which the eldest Ninja Turtle and young Avatar returned. Perhaps there is hope yet, she said with an honest smile. There's always hope, Aang confirmed. Yukyu would have been pound. Chikara said as Hisame even smiled as well, causing Aang to smile back in return. With the second artifact secured, the Ninja Turtles, Team Avatar, their friends, and the 2 members of the Ninja Tribunal boarded their flying ship and began their returning flight to the lap of the gods, with Appa giving a roar as he flew beside them. However, right after the heroes had left, one single rat crawled out of the warren and into the open swamp. It soon came before the foot of the earth mystic before the being allowed the rat to climb into his hand, where it crawled onto his shoulder and whispered what he needed to hear. The earth mystic turned to his brothers of fire, water, metal, and wind. All is ready. Perfect. The metal mystic sneered with an evil smile. Soon, the master will be free. Chapter 6, Beginning of the End. It was late at night as a blood-red moon grew darker, likely the indication of a lunar eclipse, but that was not the case. No, this was an omen of a coming darkness that would block out all forms of light, even that only existed in night. And this was the omen that was gladly awaited by the 5 mystic heralds of the Dark One as they stood at the top of an old temple. It is written in the skies, the fire mystic began as they all formed a circle around each other, and lightning flashed around then. The 5 shall undo the chains of time and free the Dark One. The water mystic continued. We are the 5, the earth mystic confirmed. And we shall free the master. The metal mystic stated as an ominous red aura formed around each of them. We shall raise him from his captivity, the wind mystic said. That he may unleash chaos onto the world. The water mystic finished as lightning flashed at a much faster rate all around them. And now is the time. The fire mystic declared as they raised their hands straight up, right as a lightning bolt struck them and the 5 mystics had completely vanished. The end has come, and it begins tonight. The flying ship owned by the tribunal traversed through the cloudy night skies, with Appa flying alongside it. And all indication appeared that the heroes on board had believed they had won not just the battle but the war before it even started. They had the second artifact in hand, and it soon would be sealed away in the lap of the gods before the heralds could get to it, so it was only natural that most of the heroes on board were feeling very relaxed. I'm king of the world, Mikey shouted as he stood at the front of the ship, overlooking the night sky with Katara and Ty Lee right behind him. Another lightning bolt flashed near them, starting both Mikey and Ty Lee as they jumped back with screams. Some king of the world, Katara teased with a grin. Well, at least there's no icebergs up here, right guys? Mikey asked with an embarrassed laugh. Why would we be worried about icebergs? Ty Lee asked. Katara's a waterbender, she could just move them out of the way. Just something from a movie. Mikey said. You know what? How about once we're done here, we take you guys to New York for movies, pizza, and all sorts of fun stuff. Katara smiled. Sounds like a plan. After fighting demons and all this intense training with the tribunal, I could use a break. Same here. I so can't wait for this whole thing to be over. Ty Lee said as she nonchalantly stood on her hands. Meanwhile, at the helm of the ship, stood Hisame along with Don and Sokka. All 3 of them concentrated their kai, as Don and Sokka had their respective purple and silver auras and markings glowing around them as they, along with Hisame, steered the ship with their kai rather than with their hands. Coolest ship ever, Don said as he peeked open on eye to Sokka, who did the same. I so can't wait to try this back home. See the look on Dad's face. Sokka smiled. At the back of the ship, Raph hung around with Toph and Mai. So Toph, after all this blows over, how about we head to New York? Toph shrugged. Another big city, I think'll pass. It ain't like Boss Singh say, alright. Raph replied. Trust me, that place is way better. For one, we can crack a lot more skulls. The blind earthbender smirked. Alright, you convinced me. That didn't take too long. Mike commented with a smirk. Meanwhile, in the lower portions of the ship, Leo, Aang, Zuko, Karai, Azula, and Suki had gathered with Chikara as the tribunal member looked at the Shredder's gauntlet on a small pedestal. I know right now it's harmless, but that thing still gives me chills. Suki said as a shiver went down her spine. Though they didn't say it, pretty much everyone felt the same way, including Chikara herself. Even Momo, who hung on Aang's shoulder, hid behind the young monk's head. The wretched one's heralds will not let our victory go unanswered, Chikara said. But Chikara Shisho, with the Shredder artifact secured, haven't we stopped his resurrection in its tracks? Leo asked. Yeah, I mean if the heralds can't get to them, then they can't bring the Shredder back, right? Aang seemed to agree. Aren't you being a little too optimistic? Azula questioned, resulting in surprised expressions from both Aang and Leo. Azula's right. Zuko seemed to agree. We might have all the artifacts now, but the heralds are still out there. They're not just going to give up just because we look the artifacts away. Indeed. Chikara also agreed. We may have won a battle, but only when all three artifacts are entombed within the monastery will I feel even an iota of relief. If the artifacts are the key to the Shredder's return, why not simply destroy them? Karai asked. Yeah, if there aren't any artifacts, then there is no Shredder to resurrect. Suki said. At least destroy the helmet and gauntlet. We have tried, Chikara said. Even Avatar Yukyu with her energy bending was unable to destroy them. The darkness embedded in each of the artifacts is too great. Perhaps our next move should be hunting down the heralds and destroy them. Azula suggested. That would be a wise choice, Chikara said. However, our first priority is to ensure the artifacts are secured. It wasn't long before the heroes all returned to the lap of the gods with the gauntlet. Khan led Chikara, Hisami, the acolytes, and their friends into the main temple. I had a terrible vision, Chikara. The beginning of the end is upon us, Khan said. The group met up with Judo, Splinter, Iroh, and the Ancient One as the tribunal appeared to discuss matters. Hey guys, something feels off. Ty Lee looked curiously at the tribunal. Something in their aura. Yeah, I don't like it either. Toph could feel something similar. I've got a really bad feeling about this. Why would you assume that? Sokka asked, trying to muster a positive attitude. We have the artifacts, we've won, right? Is he always like this? Azula asked her brother. Yeah, but I don't like Tiz either. Something doesn't quite feel right about this situation, Zuko said as the young heroes looked to each other curiously. Master Splinter, what's going on? Leo asked his adoptive father. The omens have turned against us, my son. Splinter replied. Despite your good work and hard-won efforts. The 5 mystic warriors come to the monastery. They approach even now, Khan revealed to the acolytes and their friends. The heralds of the Shredder. Everyone gave a gasp with that revelation. They're coming here, Katara questioned. So much for hunting them down. Suki commented. We must take drastic measures if we are to survive. Khan continued as he took the gauntlet. Hisami, lead the acolytes and their allies to the third artifact, they will be our last line of defense. The sarcophagus, Chikara questioned in surprise. Khan, the location of that artifact is our most closely guarded secret. Better to make our stand here. Chikara, I have seen the future. Khan argued. Secrets will not help us now. Time is of the essence, you must trust me in this. Chikara gave a begrudging sigh as she seemed to accept Khan's argument. Acolytes, steel yourselves, and prepare. She instructed each of them as the turtles, Team Avatar, and their friends looked to each other with serious and nervous expressions. Even Aang and Katara held hands, as did Sokka and Suki, along with Zuko and Mai. Hisami led the 10 acolytes, along with Karai, Suki, Mai, Ty Lee, Splinter, the Ancient One, and Iroh down a long staircase that led deep underground within the monastery. They came to a stop at the ground floor around a blue circle before Hisami channeled his Kai into his hands and gave the floor a light touch. With that single touch, the patterns on the floor began to glow as it soon descended in the form of a stone elevator, even deeper underground. Meanwhile, with the helmet and gauntlet in hand, Chikara followed Kan and Judo to the vault they had created specifically to hold these two artifacts, while also keeping them away from the third and final one. However, it would appear that Chikara still disapproved of her comrade's recent choice. These actions seem rash, Kan, the only female member of the ninja tribunal, began. I do not understand why it is necessary that the acolytes know the location of the evil one's sarcophagus. Even if one of them is the current avatar, he is still a naive child. If the heralds realize that Aang and his friends have this knowledge, all their lives are forfeit. We agreed that the location of the crypt would die with the tribunal. Yes, we would not have it any other way. Kan replied cryptically, much to Chikara's confusion as they came to their destination. However, Chikara gave a stunned gasp once she found what was inside. It was Kan, Judo, Splinter, Iroh, and the Ancient One. They were all beaten and broken, covered in bruises and even dried blood, indicating they had participated in a large battle and lost. The two beaten tribunal members hung from the walls via metal spikes, while the three old masters were on the ground and in chains. Chikara backed away slightly as Judo weakly regained consciousness. Chikara, run, he muttered as the false Kan and Judo turned to her with smiles. With a growl, Chikara attacked with a sweeping roundhouse, but the imposters leapt into the air where a cyclone of wind formed around the fake Judo and a pillar of flame ignited around the fake Kan, before revealing themselves as the wind and fire mystics respectively, with the helmet and gauntlet in hand. It's too late for that, the fire mystic declared. No, it cannot be. The heralds of the Shredder, Chikara exclaimed as not only did they have two of the artifacts, but they also incidentally led them straight towards the third. Yes, we have come. The fire mystic said. You see before you know the beginning of the end. The end, of everything. He said before he shot a blast of flame right at her. Meanwhile, Hisami continued to lead the young heroes, as well as the unknowing false old masters, down to the location of the sarcophagus. They continued to ride the stone elevator into what could only be described as a hellish landscape of fire and brimstone. Whoa, Sokka breathed as everyone looked around. They really went out of their way to hide this thing. Remember what we're dealing with, Sokka. Leo reminded him. Basically the anti-avatar, a force of ultimate evil. I know. Sokka dismissed. This whole thing just feels intense. Considering what we're trying to stop, I'd say, insane, is an understatement. Mike commented. On the plus side though, if the tribunal ever gets strapped for cash, you could make Boku bucks charging admission for this ride. Mikey stated. Let's stay focused on what we're here to do. Katara said. But doesn't all this feel rather odd to any of you? Azula asked most of the group as their ride came to a stop on a stone bridge that led to a waterfall of lava. What do you mean? Aang asked. The heralds are coming, and we're gonna stop them from getting the final artifact. But why would the tribunal lead us directly to it? Azula questioned further. We're the last line of defense, remember? Don reminded. No, Azula is correct. Karai agreed, much to everyone's confusion. It would make more sense for the tribunal themselves to be the last line of defense as they are the most powerful. I think you might be right. Even Zuko began to feel it. Chikara said that this was their most closely guarded secret. I got a really bad feeling about this. As everyone else began to take in what Azula, Karai, and Zuko were saying, nobody else seemed to notice an odd glance shared by Iroh, Splinter, and the Ancient One, who were really imposters. However, Toph did notice something with them, though she couldn't look at them with her disability, she could feel something off with them. Hisami led the large group toward the lava fall but motioned for everyone to stand back as he took out his dual tessin and infused them with his Kai. He then began to push aside the lava with his weapons to reveal a frozen cavern inside. Though surprised by how much security was put in place, the group wasted no time in entering the cavern before Hisami closed the lava fall behind them. The second they entered the cavern, they could already feel the intense cold. From the heart of a volcano, the bottom of the world. Tai Li shivered. No offense, Sokka and Katara. None taken. Both water tribe siblings replied. But it is really cold here. Katara commented. Even more so than back home. You know what's funny? Don began, trying to lighten the mood. In the epic poem, Dante's Inferno, the deepest circle of hell is actually composed of ice instead of fire, and that's where the devil is supposed to reside. And since we're going here to guard what could only be described as the ultimate evil. That's not funny, Don, Mikey said in a frightened tone. That's actually making me even more nervous. They all came to a stop before the cavern opened up to reveal a massive cave with a large circular lake at the center. There appeared to be a large altar made of rock and ice with large spikes gathered around and pointing inward. Hisami pointed toward the center of the large chamber, toward the final artifact with a large light being shined down onto it. A black and red coffin with gold lined around the edges and sliver spikes at the end with the three-toed sign of the dragon embedded on it. Just seeing it was enough to make most of the group, even Azula, shudder as they felt their hearts skip a beat. Is that it? Aang asked Hisami. The final artifact. The silent tribunal member nodded gravel to the young avatar as Katara instinctively held his hand, indicating just how scared she was. Well, this must be the place. Suki observed. Don't need Hisami to tell us that. Mai commented. Ty Lee shivered from her spot, something Karai noticed. Ty Lee, are you alright? No, she stuttered honestly as her eyes wavered with fear. You can practically feel it. I've never seen an aura like this, something so evil. You're telling me. Raph agreed. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up, and I don't even have hair. However, Toph's eyes widened as she felt the false old masters looking toward each other. Using her earthbending, she shot a tremor through the ground that cancelled another tremor coming straight for her and her friends. Toph, what are you? Leo questioned. We've been played. The blind earthbender exclaimed as she pointed to the false Iroh, Splinter, and the Ancient. Those chumps are not our friends. They're fakes. What? Zuko exclaimed as they all looked towards the trio of imposters who laughed evilly. The fake Iroh's body morphed into liquid metal, the false Ancient Ones melted into water, while the Splinter imposter's body turned into mud and stone before they revealed themselves as the metal, water, and earth mystics respectively. The Shredder's heralds. Aang exclaimed as they all drew their weapons but weren't quite over their startle. And we've just led them straight to their target. Azula's teeth gritted as even Hisami's eyes narrowed. Indeed, the earth mystic confirmed. So generous of you to lead us straight to our master's sarcophagus. What have you done with Master Splinter, Iroh, and the Ancient One? Leo demanded. You'll meet them soon enough, now that we have all that we need. The earth mystic replied with an evil laugh. Back in the tribunal vault, Chikara had been beaten as she was placed on the wall alongside the beaten Judo and Khan, her wrists bound to the walls by restraints made of fire, courtesy of the fire mystic. Do you feel it, brother? The wind mystic asked with eager anticipation. The third artifact is ours. Yes, I sense it too. The fire mystic replied. We now possess all the pieces we need to resurrect our master, and with these fools finished, let us now join our brothers in victory. The fire mystic turned into a column of flame as the wind mystic transformed into a small tornado before they left the chambers in some form of elemental teleportation. Once they were gone, however, Splinter and Iroh's eyes opened. Back in the underground cavern, the fire and wind mystics arrived and joined their brothers of metal, water, and earth and surrounded the sarcophagus of their master. Now finally, the age of the tribunal and the avatar is at an end. The earth mystic announced as Hisami, the 10 acolytes, and their friends, ran toward the center of the cavern to try and stop them. For Oroku Sake, the one true Shredder, shall rise again. The fire mystic shouted with ecstasy. However, Hisami had sped his way and came in between all 5 mystics and the sarcophagus, wielding his dual tesson, and he wasn't the only one. Remember what you've learned, acolytes. Leo stated as they were ready to join the fight. It all comes down to this. However, the earth mystic shot both his hands into the ground to erect a massive rock wall to block the young heroes. Though it wouldn't hold them back for long, it was long enough for the acolytes to attack Hisami before he even had a chance to unleash his full power. The wind mystic blasted him from behind with 2 large cyclones. Before he could even recover, the earth mystic shot his hand into the ground to create a massive stone fist to punch Hisami before the fire mystic threw a large fireball to blast Hisami from behind. He was literally crushed in between rock and fire before he fell over the sarcophagus. Hisami tried to pull himself up but he appeared to be too weak as he fell to the ground and the gold glow from his eyes vanished. Toph and Aang were able to shatter the rock wall with their respective earthbending as Toph and the other acolytes, with the exception of Aang, already had their respective auras and markings glowing with their amulets. Hisame. Aang shouted in shock at seeing him fall. Attack! Zuko exclaimed as the young heroes engaged the mystics. The metal mystic produced multiple bladed appendages from his side and shot them at Karai, who tried to block them with her swords but found herself overpowered and entangled in between them. However, Dawn leapt in the air above them with Byakko in his hand. Cleaving wind. He spun in a purple cyclone before lashing a wave of purple air that actually sliced through the metal arms, freeing Karai. Sokka also held Hikari in his hands, both bladed ends glowing with his aura as he charged at the metal mystic, who shot even more elongated blades at him, which Sokka was able to slice and block through with his blade before sending a wave of light at the metal mystic, who leapt back. The earth mystic meanwhile shot his hands into the ground, creating two large stone fists that gunned straight for Toph, but she was ready. Let's crack some heads, Yama. She spun her hammers, creating a spinning green shield which shattered the rock fists as soon as they made contact. This appeared to leave the earth mystic open for Leo to leap at him, slashing at him with his katanas. Though they were normal blades, Leo channeled his Kai into them so that they sliced through much of the earth mystic's body, knocking him back slightly. Mai slid along the ground to avoid a surge of water from the water mystic while also throwing a series of knives at him. However, the knives passed through the water mystic's body as it appeared to be made entirely out of water. Before Mai could even react, her entire body was encased in a sphere of water as the mystic attempted to drown her. Fortunately, Zuko had zoomed past the sphere with Gunshin in hand, its white flames emanating from the blade as he sliced through the sphere to free Mai before Zuko shot a blast of white fire straight at the water mystic, who tried to counter it with a powerful surge of water with his arms. However, Zuko's Gunshin proved to be much stronger as the white flames easily evaporated the water attack, forcing the water mystic to dissipate himself to avoid being evaporated himself. The fire mystic hovered in the air slightly as he erected several fireballs around his body before throwing them at Katara and Azula in the form of flaming meteors, which grew immensely in size as he threw them. Let's go, Arashi. Katara wielded her bow and shot multiple water arrows. They all shot and curved as they intercepted more than half the fire projectiles and extinguished them rather easily. However, there were also those that came a bit too close, but Azula had them covered with Hinoarashi, one bladed gauntlet covered with blue flames, the other with blue lightning. She ran and slashed at each of the remaining fireballs, freezing them in place before they shattered. The fire mystic appeared to have had enough as he shot a large blast of spiraling flames at the two girls, but Raph leapt in front of them and spun Banrai to not only block but throw the attack back at the fire mystic to knock him down. Ty Lee and Suki, meanwhile, ran straight for the wind mystic. Suki wielded her war fan and sword as she hacked and slashed at the wind mystic, while Ty Lee flipped in to try and Kai block him, but the wind mystic proved far too nimble as he avoided each attack the young women dealt at him. He flipped backwards to try and blast a cyclone at them, but Aang appeared in front of him to catch the cyclone with his airbending and throw it back at the wind mystic, which he dissipated with a swipe of his hands. Mikey came in with Inazuma and launched a volley of orange lightning bolts at the wind mystic, but he was able to put up an air sphere of his own to block the lightning. All five mystics hovered in the air together as they charged their respective elements and merged it together in the form of a massive surge of fire, water, earth, wind, and metal before they shot it right at the group. However, Aang flew straight at it, two pairs of air scooters at the bottom of his feet as his arrows began to glow white, along with his amulet. Aang shot his hands to halt the multi-elemental attack before he used his own bending to blast it away, separating each element and throwing them off to the furthest sides of the cavern. Aang landed on the ground and stood alongside Leo, Zuko, Raph, Katara, Mikey, Toph, Dawn, Sokka, Karai, Mai, Ty Lee, Suki, and Azula. Is that all you've got? The Avatar challenged the mystics as they hovered in the air. Yeah, how do you wanna be benders like that? Sokka challenged as well. Magic bending slice. However, the five mystics didn't appear the least bit intimidated. Impressive. The fire mystic acknowledged. The reptiles and the children have learned much since we've last met, but it will not matter. The fire mystic extended his hands forward toward the massive lake as three more entities emerged from the lake. The first one appeared to be none other than the same fire demon they saw in their first lesson with the tribunal, Hayashi Aki, complete with his fire wings and sword. The second one that landed on the ground in front of them appeared to be a cross between a werewolf and a centaur. He was massive with dark brown fur, 4 legs, a wolf-like face, long white hair, with razor-sharp teeth and claws. The final creature was a massive red-scaled sea serpent that made the Unagi and the Serpent's Pass monster look tame by comparison. "What the shell are those?" Raph exclaimed as they all looked in surprise to see the trio of demons. "Hey, isn't that thing the same fire demon we saw with the tribunal's first lesson?" Ty Lee recognized the fire demon. "Yeah, only I think this one's the real deal," Mikey answered with a gulp. "Hayashi Aki, fire of the sky. Sojo, spawn of black waters. And Baku, devourer of dreams." The fire mystic addressed the 3 massive demons. "Head the wish of your master. Leave nothing breathing." The monsters all roared as they engaged the young heroes. Sojo lunged its head as Baku tried to drive both his fists while Hayashi Aki brought down his massive sword. All 3 attacks hit the ground just as the heroes all dove and separated from one another. "We can do this," Leo stated as he stood alongside Aang, Mai, and Zuko. "Stay focused and we can take them. Remember, true strength comes from within," Zuko stated as he held Gunshin. "Nothing can." However, Zuko was suddenly smacked away and sent flying all the way to the far end of the cavern. "Zuko!" Mai exclaimed as she, Leo, Aang, and even Azula looked in shock. They saw Zuko however try to stabilize his landing with firebending from his feet, but the momentum was too much and he impacted the wall before falling to the ground. "Aang, help the others. Mai and I will take care of Zuko," Leo told the Avatar as the eldest ninja turtle and Mai ran to where they saw Zuko land. Hayashi Aki tried to stop them by flying down and swinging his sword at them, but Katara and Mikey began to pelt him with water arrows and orange lightning bolts respectively. Baku charged forward, but Toph was able to halt its advance with a massive earth wall as she stood her ground alongside Raph and Dawn. Sojo curved and coiled around the spikes on the ground to try and pursue Leo and Mai, but Sokka called to it. "Hey serpent boy." Sokka waved his hands, getting Sojo's attention. "I've seen my fair share of sea serpents, but you're like a little water snake compared to them." Sojo hissed at Sokka as it lunged at him with the young warrior running to divert his attention away. Leo and Mai had meanwhile made it to Zuko's location. He was lying somewhat flat on the ground, with a spike pierced into the left side of his chest. "Zuko!" Leo exclaimed as they tried to help him. "Hang on, you're gonna be okay," Mai tried to tell him. "Pull out the spike," Zuko muttered as he spat out some blood. "Zuko, you'll bleed out," Leo told him. "Just do it, trust me," Zuko muttered painfully. Leo nodded to Mai as they helped Zuko sit up straight. Leo grabbed the back of the spike and quickly yanked it out of Zuko's side. Before he could bleed any further however, the young Fire Lord produced a flame in his hand and pressed it on his wound. He yelled in pain as it hurt like hell, but Leo placed both his hands on his own to keep up the pressure, and Mai followed shortly after. After a few painful seconds, Zuko lifted his hand. His wound had stopped bleeding from the cauterization, but there was now a large burn on his side. "You idiot," Mai shook her head with a relieved smile. "It worked, didn't it?" Zuko weakly asked as he tried to stand up, but his right leg shot with pain as he grabbed it. Leo quickly inspected it. "Your leg's broken. I can try and make a stilt," Mai said as she began to tear off her sleeves. "Leo, I'm gonna need your sword's sheaths." Leo did as instructed and handed the scabbards of his katanas to Mai as she got to work. "Leo, take Gunshin," Zuko told him as he handed the Fang of the Dragon King to the blue-clad ninja turtle, much to his surprise. "Zuko, I can't," Leo tried to protest. "I can't use it the way I am now," Zuko quickly said. "I'm still gonna try and fight, but you're the most able body out of the two of us right now. I've seen you use it before, I know you can do it. Protect our friends, I'll be with you soon." Leo realized Zuko was right. Time was of the essence here and they had little choice. Leo stood up with Gunshin in his hands. "Don't take too long," he said in a joking sense as both Zuko and Mai chuckled before Leo ran back into the battle. Meanwhile, back in the tribunal's vault, Splinter and Iroh were the first to break from their chains, followed by the Ancient One. From there, the 3 old masters quickly worked to free Judo, Khan, and Chikara from their restraints. The enemy has found the 3rd artifact. Their master's sarcophagus, Chikara voiced in dread. "If they escape with all 3 artifacts, both worlds, no, all worlds in existence are doomed," Judo stated. "Then we have to stop them. Iroh declared as the 6 of them ran as fast as they could. Let's go. Back in the caverns, Ty Lee, Sokka, Mikey, and Suki all ran as Sojo chased after them. The 4 of them, however, were quickly smacked by Sojo's tail and sent flying toward the lake. However, Aang ran toward them and literally ran on the water to catch them with some waterbending before setting them safely on the ground near the far end of the chambers. You guys hang tight, I'll try and distract it, Aang told his friends as he flew up toward the demon sea serpent with air scooters on his feet. While airborne he shot multiple fire fists at the beast, but Sojo, even for his massive size, was far too quick and avoid each fire blast before lunging at Aang, who let himself fall down to the water, catching himself with some waterbending before running around the beast. Come on, we have to help him, Ty Lee exclaimed. How though? Suki asked. I've only met 2 other sea serpents, and I'm not quite an expert when it comes to demons either. Sokka tried to think as he saw the water the demonic sea serpent seemed to be stationed in before he glanced at Inazuma that Mikey was using, as well as Aang using firebending to try and keep Sojo back. What did Don say about mixing water, lightning, and fire? He snapped his fingers as an idea came to him. Aang, get out of the water. Sokka called to him before turning to the orange-clad turtle. Mikey, shoot some magic lightning into the water. Both Aang and Mikey realized what Sokka was planning and knew what to do. Aang shot straight up into the sky via airbending while keeping Sojo's attention focused squarely on him. Mikey's orange aura and markings began to form as he leapt and drew his weapon. Inazuma, do your thing. Mikey spun his weapon and unleashed a series of orange lightning bolts into the water to electrify it, while also electrocuting Sojo, causing the sea serpent to howl in pain. Aang followed suit with a massive fireball from his hands which he threw down at the electrified water. The second the flames made contact, the entire lake exploded in glorious fashion. Aang landed by his friends as they looked toward the massive steam cloud. They were quite startled at first to see the silhouette of Sojo, but once the steam began to clear, they saw the serpent was already dead. Chunks of its flesh were missing all across its body, especially in the lower regions before its carcass fell flat in front of them. Shell, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Sokka shouted with a large grin. Beating magic with science. Magic and science, you mean? Mikey exclaimed with his own grin as they shared a high five. However, their smiles fell as they, Suki and Ty Lee, looked to Aang who had a serious, yet somewhat sorrowful expression upon seeing the dead body of the demon. This was no doubt a pain for him, considering his teachings from the air nomads taught him all life was sacred. Aang, Suki said as she was the first to walk up to him. I'm sorry if you... No. Aang spoke in a serious tone of voice. It's okay, I'm fine. This was a demon that had every intent on killing us. It served a force of ultimate evil that threatens to destroy everything. I guess it had to be done. Though Aang was right about that part, it didn't stop him from at least giving a respectful bow. At the same time, Raph, Don, and Toph found themselves cornered by Baku in a separate corner of the cavern. All 3 of them held their respective weapons as their red, purple, and green auras began to glow brightly. However, Baku opened his mouth and opened as it appeared, he was inhaling their Kai. Streams of red, purple, and green shot into his mouth as the trio of heroes could already feel their strength fading. You guys hit him high. Toph tried to speak. All hit, however, before she could finish, she and the 2 turtles she was with fell on their hands and knees, almost completely drained. Baku then smashed his hand onto the trio. However, he lifted it to see a small rock dome, which Toph erected in time to protect them from being squashed. However, it crumbled to reveal herself, Raph, and Don flat on the ground. Though they weren't crushed, the impact was enough to rattle them and knock them down. Karai quickly ran to try and help. Come on, you must stand. Get up. She tried, but as they regained some form of consciousness, Baku was already looming over them. He bashed away one large spike and caught it in his hands. The massive werewolf centaur-like demon was ready to bring his makeshift weapon down on all 4 and end them. However, a large column of white flame impacted Baku on the chest to knock him down. The one responsible was none other than Leo, his blue aura and markings glowing brightly as he held Gunshin in his hands. By the dragon's fire, burn demon. He spun a circle of white flame with his sword before shooting it forward, creating a larger blast of white flames that hit Baku once more. The second the flames hit, Baku roared in agony as he felt his entire body being burnt away. In a matter of seconds, there was only ashes left of the demon. Now that's being a turtle. Raph smirked as even Toph smiled. However, Don and Karai looked in surprise at the weapon Leo was wielding. Gunshin. But what happened to Zuko? Don voiced in worry. He's in rough shape, but he'll live. Leo informed as he joined the group. Where's everyone else? Scattered. Karai informed. At the same time, Azula and Katara found themselves on the defensive from Hayashi Aki as they were backed into another corner. You're the last person I'd expect to die fighting alongside. Azula commented to the waterbender. We're not gonna die. We can get through this. Katara exclaimed as she and Azula both dodged to avoid the massive sword brought down on them by the flying fire demon. Well, if you have any ideas, I'm all ears. Azula exclaimed. She knew they had little chance against this demon. Even if it was only a lesson from the tribunal, all of the turtles and so-called Team Avatar, and even herself were all powerless against this demon. True, she has gotten stronger thanks to the tribunal's training, but it was just her and Katara now. What could they do? Hayashi Aki roared as it was about to attack again, however a bolt of lightning shot straight up and into its back, causing the creature to roar in agony before it fell down. Both Azula and Katara looked in surprise to see Zuko on the other side, having pointed his finger. His right leg was tied in a makeshift stilt with Mai supporting him with his other hand over her shoulder. Hit him. Go while he's down, Zuko shouted to the two girls. Seeing this as their opportunity, Azula and Katara ran toward the downed demon. Using her strength and speed, provided with the navy blue aura and markings, Katara leapt high into the air as she aimed Arashi, reading what appeared to be 3 water arrows before releasing them. The water arrows, each with ice tips at the end, not only shot and pierced through Hayashi Aki's body but even circled back to pierce through him multiple times, causing him to roar in agony. Azula used this opening to run straight at the monster's front. With her azure blue aura and markings, as well as her glowing clawed gauntlets, she leapt and slashed right past Hayashi Aki's head, specifically his neck area before landing on the ground. The demon's head had been completely severed before it froze and fell to the ground, shattering on impact while what was left of its mangled body fell with a thud. Mai couldn't help but smirk. Not bad. Zuko, are you okay? Katara asked urgently as she and Azula ran up to him. Yeah, a broken leg isn't enough to keep me down, Zuko assured in a joking sense. However, that didn't stop Katara from using her waterbending to begin healing the leg. Don't forget how you cauterized that spike wound like a badass. Mai smirked. Azula saw the seared wound on her brother's chest. She was surprised, and even a tad bit worried, but at the same time impressed. However, she was quickly brought back to reality once she realized something was off. All their allies had been scattered and separated during their fights with these demons, away from the center of the chamber. Away from the artifacts. Everyone. Azula shouted at the top of her lungs, her voice echoing and getting everyone's attention. The heralds have the artifacts. It was true, the 5 mystics had gathered together at the center around the Shredder's coffin. It is time, the fire mystic announced as they placed the helmet and gauntlet on top. We have all that we need. The master shall rule once again. The 5 heralds quickly began to levitate toward the opening in the ceiling, while the earth mystic used his powers to erect an earth pillar that shot the artifacts into the air with them. Not today, Dawn announced as she and Toph were the first to get there and stop them. Not ever, Toph added as she slammed Yama into the ground, creating a tremor that shot up the ascending pillar while Dawn spun with Byakko and created a purple wind wave to shatter the pillar and halt its and the herald's literal ascendance while Toph's tremor continued to travel upward before it exploded and knocked back the mystics, briefly disorienting them. Using this opening, Karai and Ty Lee both ran and jumped onto the falling sarcophagus. Once they were on it, Karai grabbed the gauntlet while Ty Lee grabbed the helmet before jumping off just as the sarcophagus hit the ground. Aang shot into the air straight towards the recovering heralds. Everyone, hit me with everything you got, he shouted to his friends who were trying to get back toward the center of the chamber. Do it, now. You heard him. Leo was already on board. Go. He shot Gunshin forward, blasting a column of white flame. The other acolytes followed suit as well. Raph shot bolts of red thunder from Banrai. Dawn spun Byakko to send a purple cyclone up, while Toph swung Yama to send green waves of tremors that shot through the air. Zuko shot his fist to provide a steam of regular firebending, while Katara shot multiple water arrows with Arashi. At the same time Azula shot both gauntlets of Hinoarashi for dual blasts of blue ice lightning and blue ice fire. Mikey spun Inazuma to send bolts of orange lightning as Sokka swung Hikari to send waves of silver light as well. Aang entered the Avatar state as all 9 attacks were sent at him. Using energy bending, Aang was able to bend all the attacks and spin them around his body briefly like a cyclone before bringing them together to merge in a single sphere of pulsating white light before shooting his hands forward to blast the sphere in the form of 5 projectiles of pure energy that blasted each of the 5 mystics, sending them plummeting and crashing into the ground, but it didn't stop there until Aang was certain they were deep enough underground to at least render them immobile for a time. The young Avatar descended to the ground to meet all his friends as he left the Avatar state. "Is everyone alright?" "Yeah, I think we're good," Leo confirmed as the group began to share high fives and smiles. Even Azula smiled a bit herself. Ty Lee ran to the sarcophagus to see if it was still intact, which it was. "The casket, we did it. Guys, I think we just won." "Shell yeah baby," Mikey exclaimed with joy. "We got back all 3 artifacts, and the 5 Goombas are out of commission." "Yes, but for how long?" Karai wondered aloud, thinking that they weren't out of the woods yet. Mikey's expression faded as he saw Hisame's unresponsive body. "Master Hisame, he needs help." He and Ty Lee quickly ran to try and flip Hisame up as everyone set their sights on the downed tribunal member. Toph's dull eyes widened. "Guys, his heart's not beating." She spoke in a grave tone that began to worry everyone. "Katara, can you help him?" Aang asked as the waterbender was already at his side. She was about to begin healing when a whip suddenly ensnared her wrist to stop her before she even began. "Leave him be. His time is done." This was from Judo, who retracted his whip as Khan, Chikara, Splinter, Iroh, and the Ancient One walked onto the scene. "You have all fought well, but the fight is far from over." "But Hisame, Aang couldn't even find the words as he, and pretty much everyone else had been rendered speechless, including Azula. Did a member of the Ninja Tribunal really just die? That had to be some kind of joke, right? Aang. Splinter put a firm hand on the Avatar's shoulder. "All we can do for him now is honor his courage, by stopping Oroku Saki's return. I am sorry. And the first step along that path is to destroy the Shredder's heralds," Chikara announced. They could all feel the ground quake and tremble as the mystics climbed their way back to the surface. "Guys, they're coming," Toph warned as she could sense them. Khan, Judo, and Chikara stood together in the center of the chamber as they pressed their hands together and channeled as much of their own energy outward as they could. Already a powerful surge of raw power began to emanate from them. "Make haste," Chikara told the acolytes and their allies. "Take the artifacts far from this place. Hide them. Leave the heralds to us." "But what about you guys?" Katara asked. "Let us stay," Aang stated. "We can help you. We can fight them together." "No," Judo shouted as their energy quickly built up even further. "We told you before, Avatar. The lives of the few are meaningless compared to the significance of these artifacts. That includes our own." Everybody present, turtle, human, old, and young, looked towards the tribunal in shock, including Splinter, Azula, and even Aang. Were the tribunal going to sacrifice themselves? "Go. Now," Chikara exclaimed. But Aang tried to protest, but Leo put a hand on his shoulder. "Aang, we have to go," Leo told him as Toph had already used her earthbending to create a small platform around all 17 heroes, as well as the 3 artifacts. She moved the platform so that it carried everyone out of the cavern and far away just as the heralds flew above the tribunal as their suicidal attack grew to exponential proportions. "Join your master," Khan shouted to the mystics. With the acolytes and their friends already making it to a relatively safe distance, the explosion went off. Boom. Asterisk. From an aerial perspective over the entire lap of the gods, multiple explosions appeared in the very mountain itself that the monastery was created from. It shook almost the entire area as smoke rose up from the abyss below. The heroes had ridden the stone elevator back to the upper levels of the monastery with the artifacts secured, but many of them had to sit down and catch a breath, as well as wrap their minds around what had just happened. "What just, are they? Did they?" Ty Lee stuttered. There's no way the heralds survived that. Right, Sokka hopped. I'm not eager to stick around and find out. Azula said. But what are we supposed to do with these things anyway? Raph questioned. Bury them on the other side of the planet. Maybe we could use the Nexus to travel back to our world. Aang suggested. We could bury each artifact in one of the air temples. We could. The young Avatar appeared to be in a shocked state, not over the possibility that the tribunal was gone. Even though he wouldn't exactly consider them friends, they were allies and had close ties to one of his past lives. Katara put a sympathetic hand on his shoulder as this helped him to calm down. Leo tried to come up with a plan. We could use the Nexus. Talk to the daimyo and work with him to scatter the artifacts across multiple worlds. Yes, perhaps that is the wisest course of action. Master Splinter seemed to agree. Young ones. Ancient One spoke up, getting their attention. I understand this is all much for all of you. But right now, we must leave the lap of the gods. We cannot afford to waste the time Khan and the others gave us. He's right, Zuko said as he was able to stand up fully. Let's go. Toph grabbed the sarcophagus with a hand made of rock and moved it along the ground as Ty Lee and Karai carried the helmet and gauntlet respectively. They all ran up the stairs to get to the upper levels. Within just a few minutes, the group had already made it to the main chambers of the Lap of the Gods, but they all came to a screeching halt as they saw none other than the 5 mystics hovering in the air above the thrones of the tribunal. No, the heralds! Karai exclaimed in shock as they all looked in near terror. But how? Katara stuttered. You have underestimated our powers. The water mystic said. And for that mistake, your lives will end here. The fire mystic declared. But if these guys are up here, that means, Leo's eyes widened in dread as he couldn't even finish his sentence. That means the ninja tribunal is no more. The water mystic declared with a sneer. That hit them all like a load of bricks. The ninja tribunal, beings whose power rival a fully realized avatar was gone. It sounded almost impossible, so much so that nobody could truly believe it. No, it can't be, Aang stuttered. Weep not for them, Avatar. The metal mystic said. After all, you are the one who sealed their fate. What are you talking about? Aang demanded. Have you not yet realized? The fire mystic questioned. Without you, we could never have the means to free our master. The water mystic said. For it was you that freed us. The wind mystic revealed before a whirlwind formed around his body and he took the form of the wind mystic Nina. The others followed suit, starting with the fire mystic who took up his own ninja guise under a column of flame, followed by the water mystic whose body spun in surge of water to reveal his own mystic ninja form, along with the metal mystic whose body shifted with liquid metal to reveal his previous ninja form, and finally the earth mystic, whose body condensed into mud briefly to reveal his old ninja form as well. Everybody's eyes widened in shock with shrunken pupils as they recognized them instantly. The mystic ninjas, Leo voiced in one breath. Those same wannabe benders we took down in Ba Sing Se. Toph exclaimed in shock. Fire, water, earth, wind, and metal, Karai recognized them as well. I cannot believe I did not recognize them. But we beat them. We already beat these guys. Sokka stated. Foolish children, you did not defeat us, not truly. The earth mystic said. The heart of Tengu was an artifact used by that wretched Utram abomination to force us into his service. The fire mystic voiced with contempt. It leashed us to him, while also weakening our own powers. The water mystic added. Though you were able to overpower us in Ba Sing Se, it was only because our own strength had considerably weakened. The metal mystic said. However, once the Avatar destroyed that very same crystal Chirel used to enslave us, you set us free. The earth mystic revealed. What? Azula questioned as she looked towards the aforementioned Avatar with a slight glare. No, I didn't, I only, Aang stuttered as the mystics once again assumed their true forms. How fitting. The water mystic began. For it was an avatar who sealed away our master, but now the actions of the current avatar that will soon lead to our master's freedom. Even more so, the wind mystic sneered sadistically. When you vanished a century ago, young Aang, it left your pitiful world vulnerable for the Fire Nation to tear apart. The blood of your entire civilization of air nomads and countless others is on your hands, just as the blood of the ninja tribunal is now. The artifacts. Now. The fire mystic ordered. The metal mystic was the first to shoot down, both his arms converted into razor-sharp blades, gunning straight for Sokka, who desperately blocked the attacks with Hikari. The metal mystic didn't even give Sokka time to strike back as he spun his bladed arms around his body like a top, which Sokka could barely block with his own weapon. Sokka! Suki exclaimed as she and Karai ran to try and help him. Karai and Suki both leapt at the metal mystic with their respective swords, but 4 more metallic blades shot out from his body at the young women. Though they tried to block, their sides were cut a bit as they fell and hit the ground, blood already oozing from their wounds. The fire and wind mystic combined their powers to create a massive flaming vortex, which they shot at the group, forcing them all to scatter. This appeared to leave an opening for the water mystic to create 3 water domes to seal Iroh, Splinter, and the Ancient One. The water mystic shot his arms forward, which merged together and took shape in the form of a dragon made entirely out of water, gunning straight for Don, who back-flipped out of the way to avoid it. However, the water dragon appeared to be tracking Don, and before he could attack with Byakko, it bit down on him before heaving him up to slam him down on the ground. Ty Lee gave a yell as she tried to attack and Kai blocked the water mystic from behind. However, his body morphed and melted into water before Ty Lee was encompassed and encased in another water sphere along with the 3 old masters. Katara rolled back before firing multiple water arrows from Arashi straight at the earth mystic, but he not only erected an earth wall to block the attack, but multiple rock tentacles with hands at the ends emerged from the ground to ensnare Katara and quickly slam her into a nearby wall. Raph and Toph both ran toward the earth mystic as Toph spun Yama to send out multiple rocks from the ground at him like a machine gun, but the earth mystic shielded his body with an earth dome. Raph was about to slash right through it with Banrai, but multiple rocky spikes exploded out of the dome, forcing Toph to create her own earth wall to block it, but the earth mystic was able to run right through it and ram both Raph and Toph to send them rolling across the ground. The wind mystic sent out multiple cyclones straight for Mikey, Azula, Mai and Zuko, which they dodged to avoid. Zuko had a rough time landing as his leg was still broken, but he quickly pulled himself up and shot more fire fists at the enemy, which Mikey added on with bolts from Inazuma's swings. However, the wind mystic erected his own air sphere to not only block the attack but spin it around and add to his own attack, creating a vortex that blasted and sent both of them, along with Mai, and crashed through the wall. Azula's aura and markings began to glow as she shot at the wind mystic, spinning her body like a corkscrew with Hinoarashi to create a vortex of ice lightning and ice flames around her body, but the wind mystic's body evaporated into the air, letting Azula pass right through him. When she stabilized herself, it left her open for the wind mystic to blast her in the back with a cyclone attack. Aang shot in the air, gunning straight for the fire mystic, who retaliated with a series of fireballs, which Aang was able to swerve around before raising 2 rocks from the ground and trying to sandwich the fire mystic in between. However, a powerful explosion obliterated the 2 rocks to send Aang crashing to the ground. The fire mystic pressed on with a massive fireball in his hands, which he threw down at Aang. However, Leo appeared in front of him with Gunshin, which he used to slice the fireball in half before blasting white flames at the enemy, who created a fire shield to block the attack. Though the white flames were able to burn away at the orange ones, the fire mystic's body had disappeared, apparently using this as a distraction before reappearing in between Aang and Leo, surprising them both and leaving them open for the fire mystic to lash out with elongated firearms and grab them both by the throats, burning them around the neck area as well, very painfully as they groaned. As we told you, the heart of Tengu not only leashed us to the Utram imposter but also negated our powers. The fire mystic told them. Which is how you were able to defeat us so easily before, but thanks to you, Avatar Aang, the crystal is destroyed, and our full powers unleashed. You cannot defeat. However, Momo suddenly flew into the fire mystic's face to hiss and claw at him, forcing him to drop Aang and Leo. However, Momo would be the least of his worries as a familiar roar was heard from outside. Appa burst through the main gates and straight into the monastery chambers. This took the young heroes and even the heralds by surprise as Appa first rammed his head into the metal mystic and curved upward to send him crashing into the ceiling. Appa then swung his tail to create a powerful airwave to blast back the fire, wind, and water mystics before the mighty sky bison bit down on the earth mystic's foot, swung him a bit before letting go and chucking him toward the other side of the chamber. Way to go, Appa! Dawn exclaimed as the heroes began to regroup. Even Tai Li, Splinter, Iroh, and the Ancient One were freed from the Water Mystic's shield. Huh, never thought I'd be so happy to see the bison. Azula commented with a small smile herself. However, the mystics were quick to recover, and even with the growling sky bison, they were less than pleased themselves. Wretched beast. The earth mystic exclaimed as it shot a massive stone fist from the floor to send Appa crashing up into the ceiling. The impact was enough to shake the entire monastery chambers, forcing the heroes to try and avoid the falling debris as even Toph and Aang had trouble blocking it with their earthbending. As Appa recovered, he tried to fly at the mystics again, but the wind mystic sent another cyclone attack to blast Appa right in the face and send it skidding to the ground, where the water and metal mystics threw out multiple ice blades and elongated metal arms respectively to slash Appa all across his sides, causing the mighty bison to scream in pain, much to Aang's shock as he saw it all. The fire mystic was the last one to attack with a final blast to Appa's back and send it crashing hard and rolling across the ground. The mighty sky bison had been brought down and was already bleeding. Though he would need some time to heal, he would still live. Momo flew to Appa's face and tried to give a comforting squeak, which Appa replied with a gentle groan. Aang looked in utter shock and disbelief as he saw his beloved bison in such terrible condition. But his shock turned into unchecked rage as he glared hatefully at the mystics. "I've had enough," Aang roared as he entered the avatar state and shot at the mystics like a missile. However, it would appear that the heralds were ready for him as they combined their respective elemental powers for yet another combined elemental attack of fire, water, wind, earth, and metal, which they blasted at Avatar Aang, who tried to block the attack with his hands. Though he appeared to halt the attack, it kept pushing back against him. Unlike before, Aang was angry. Angry at the mystics for hurting Appa and the rest of his friends. Angry at them for murdering the tribunal. But most of all, he was angry at himself for setting the mystics free and starting all this. However, it was that anger that blinded him and made it easier for the mystics to press their attack. "We underestimated you once before, Avatar," the water mystic stated. "It will not happen again." All five of them roared as they pressed even more power into their attack, almost doubling its output. Avatar Aang tried to push forward, but it seemed too much for even him in his state of blind rage. The attack quickly pressed and shot him to the ground, where it exploded in glorious fashion, much to the horror of many of his friends. "Aang!" Katara screamed as she channeled her Kai, causing her navy blue aura and markings to appear, before she used her enhanced speed to zoom right into the smoking crater where Aang's body was located. She quickly grabbed him and zoomed back to her friends, who all regrouped around the injured Appa as Toph erected an earth wall for cover. "Aang! Come on Aang! Don't do this to us again," Leo stated as everyone else, especially Katara, and even Azula looked at him with worry. The young Avatar's eyes weakly opened, indicating he was still alive. "Guys, I'm sorry, this is my fault." "Aang," Katara said as tears were already welling up in her eyes. "What a pity." They all looked up as the heroes could all gasp in shock to see not only the fire mystic holding the Shredder's helmet, but the water mystic with the gauntlet, and the earth mystic with the sarcophagus. Such a waste of power, simply to delay the inevitable. The fire mystic sneered. All five mystics brought their hands together as they touched all three artifacts and channeled an aura of pure dark magic around themselves. "From the ashes of your accursed ninja tribunal, our dread Lord Shredder will rise again," the fire mystic declared as multiple dark red energy beams shot out from all around them. They pierced through everything in the lap of the gods. Every room, every chamber, from the spirit forge, to the place of the acolyte's residency, even the crypt where the sarcophagus was kept. The entire monastery was beginning to collapse. Honestly, the only thing that kept the small portion of the floor all the heroes, including Appa, were standing on from collapsing was Toph desperately trying to hold it together with her earthbending. When it all finally stopped, everybody could only look around them in absolute shock, borderline horror. There was nothing left of the lap of the gods. What was once a great and majestic monastery, constructed by the Ninja Tribunal, Avatar Yukyu, and the founders of the White Lotus, was now nothing more than ruins in a sea of burning lava, and a blood-red sky hanging above them. The mystics all laughed hard as the heroes looked up to see a large portal beginning to open in front of them. The water, earth, wind, and metal mystics flew in first with the sarcophagus and gauntlet, leaving only the fire mystic who turned around to show the Shredder's helmet before he bowed mockingly to the heroes. "On behalf of the Great One, we thank you," he said before going into the portal himself. It slowly began to close, indicating that the heralds were leaving them there to rot. It was almost a nightmare to nearly every single one of them. Only a few hours ago, they had believed they had won, only to have that victory ripped away from them. Now the worst possible scenario was about to become a reality, and it didn't seem like any of them were able to stop it. However, Leonardo was not about to give up. "No, no. It can't have all been for nothing. I won't let it be," Leo declared as his blue aura and markings began to show. With a mighty yell, he shot Gunshin forward to blast a powerful column of white flame into the portal to keep it open. "I will never stop fighting." "Leo, what are you?" Katara questioned, but they all looked in shock to see Leo walking backwards slightly, pulling the portal closer. "Hurry," Leo told everyone. "I don't know how long I can keep this thing open." Karai had a serious expression on her face. "You all heard him. Into the portal," she exclaimed as she, Zuko, and Katara, holding Aang's injured body with his arm over her shoulder, were the first to jump in. Followed by Raph, Toph, Mikey, Dawn, Splinter, Mai, Ty Lee, Sokka, Suki, Iroh, the Ancient One, even Momo as well as Appa who, despite being injured, flew right in. Azula appeared to be the last as she hesitated slightly. "Azula, you too," Leo exclaimed. However, her hesitance turned into seriousness. "You first." She ran up to him from behind to push him into the portal before she leapt into it herself right as it closed. The other end of the portal opened up as Appa was the first to fall out and land hard on the ground. Fortunately though his furry, although somewhat bloody, body cushioned the landing for Aang, Katara, Raph, Mikey, Dawn, Sokka, Suki, Toph, Zuko, Mai, Iroh, Splinter, the Ancient One, Ty Lee, Leo, and finally Azula, as they landed on Appa's side. Momo flew around as well before resting on the side of Appa's head. Is everyone here? Did we all make it?" Suki asked. Sokka did a quick head count as everyone pulled themselves up. "Yeah, that's every man, woman, mutant, and animal." "Where are we now?" Azula wondered as they appeared to be in some sort of alleyway, one big enough to hold everyone. I think it's some kind of city." Toph felt the area with her seismic sense. "A big one." Dawn and Zuko took point as they peeked out the alleyway to see Times Square. This our world," Dawn said. "We're in New York." "Are you sure?" Zuko asked. "Yeah, we're home," Dawn confirmed as everyone regrouped. I can't believe it," Leo said as they let all that just happened sink in and process. "The Ninja Tribunal, they're really gone. It's almost unbelievable," Katara voiced in agreement. "Those guys might have been jerks but, even Mikey stuttered as all of them, even Azula, and especially Aang looked down in silent mourning. "They have made the ultimate sacrifice," Iroh said. "We must not let it be in vain." "But what about the heralds?" Raph asked. "Why the shell would they come to our world? To New York City?" "I cannot say for certain, Raphael," Master Splinter told his son. "But I do know what their victory today means. It means that the end of everything begins here." The heroes, young and old, could do nothing more than allow a powerful sense of dread and despair fill their bodies. High above them, clouds already began to form as lightning struck, and the clouds began to take a familiar shape. Soon, very soon, the demon Shredder would live once more. And this is the end of Season 2 Part 3 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't really leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.